right. The two sections we're covering today is know your market and pretty much or connect with your market, define your value. So those are the two sessions that we're going to cover today. Um, these are two topics that perhaps I was asked just because these are topics that I have a strong belief in personally. They tie themselves together. Um, Connecting with your market and knowing your value. When you connect with your market, you're displaying your value. You're conveying your value to your marketplace. Don't think that you have as much value if you don't know your market and you can't connect with the market. All right, and by the market I mean whether it's uh, your client database, whether you're doing geographic farming or you have an area of special expertise that you deal with in the real estate world, and how you're going to um, where your focus is going to be in your real estate business. And so the more you know, the more, oh, thank you, Jess. More knowledge you have about your market, the more value you will convey and pass along to your clients. And there's going to be a lot of benefits. So we'll talk about that in the second unit. So I've been in the real estate business. I think this is my 29th year now. I've been with KW for 9 years, something in that range. Been involved in a lot of the education of the company, helped to develop the mentorship program, and a very diverse portfolio of business. I like diversity. I don't. Being an area specialist is really nice and it's very valuable, and we'll talk about that. If you do have a certain niche market that you focus on and become a specialist, you have an advantage generally in that kind of situation in that type of market. Mine has been very diverse, and my wife Laura Lee, who's the team leader here at KW, she and I have been. She's actually been in the real estate business a few years more longer than I have. So she was a very influential in me getting into the real estate world because it was a very rewarding in a lot of different ways. I like the flexibility of time and controlling my life. There are times in real estate where real estate will control you. And when that starts to happen, you got to turn that around, right? So you should always be in control of your business. Don't let your business be in control of you. So Laura and I have gone down the path of different practices in real estate. We've got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas of real estate. So going to the second chapter, like learning, I think is the key to the success in your real estate business. Personally, the more you know, the more value you convey with confidence. Nothing worse when you shrug your shoulder and when you're asked a question that you're not sure. I'll have to check. And there's only so many times you can get away with that before your clients are wondering, okay, do I have the right person here that I'm talking to about helping me with my real estate needs? Right. So having the knowledge and having the experience really helps, and helping to define your value as you build your knowledge in your market, in your industry, and helps that translate into value. And so we've done a lot of foreclosure work. We've done a lot of development. We've done a lot of resale homes, lots of new construction. So there really isn't a lot that we haven't touched in our real estate career. So sometimes through the course, we get into some practical conversations of how we've dealt with it. I want to hear your stories and get to know you guys a little bit here today. Just to be able to call on you to interact and engage with the course and the course topics. So let me just quickly go around the room and see what type of experience do we have. How long has everybody been in the real estate business? I know Jill's in the back there. She's been in for a number of years now. So how long have you been in, Jill?
On the 10 years.
10 years. There you go. Quite a ride, eh?
Yeah.
So when I look back at my real estate career and compare it to your real estate career, it's kind of a very similar situation. So I got in 1996, and I had about 2 years, and then in 1998, the real estate market took off because they discovered oil and gas off the shore of Nova Scotia, brought a lot of oil people, boom, a lot of expansion in our city. And so I was grateful to be able to get familiar with the real estate business for a couple of years before everything exploded and everybody was busy. It was the very first time between 1998 and 2000 we ever saw multiple offer situations. Before that, it was virtually unheard of. Two buyers fighting for the same house in Halifax. Like really, we hear about that in Vancouver and Toronto for years, in Calgary where the oil was, but very seldom, very rarely did we ever get multiple offers on houses before that. And so you've been in for about 10 years, so 2015.
It was really low, so it was after the shipbuilding. In 2012, the shipbuildings, there was a bit of a boom, and we were coming down into that
Yep.
valley of
Yep.
people were losing. They wanted to sell, they were losing money, so it was a really hard thing.
Great to be a buyer's agent, wasn't it? Yeah. Right. And then, so you had a good few years, you know, it was, and we're going to talk about this because in the first chapter, it's connect with your market. And what we're talking about, we'll come back to that because it is knowing the type of markets that you're in. So we'll talk about that. But Jill was able to get her feet wet without all of a sudden, because there was a gradual progression in 2016, 17, 18, 19, and then there was an explosion in 2020. The pandemic hit, and it just seems like it just put the markets upside down, where everybody was flush with money and eager to buy homes. And so then we had this mania of a pandemic market that just made no sense at the time. We all, yeah, it was, yeah, foot on the gas the whole way through. And so it was an exciting time, but our markets, our real estate career is very similar in that we got to learn and get a feel for the market before chaos hit, and you know we were very ready for it. So the ups and downs of the markets, we'll talk about when it comes to connecting your market and understanding what the patterns and things that you will encounter in your real estate career. Because economically, they say generally the economics ebbs and flows are like within 7-year patterns, right? It'll go up and then it will correct and it will come down, and then we'll go 7 years later, it will go up and then it will correct and it will come down. So in my career, I've been through 3 that I can see. There was a subprime market crash in 2008 and 2009. Things flatlined for us, and it was a difficult market to understand and read and interpret for our clients. And then in 2010, specifically for our region, and we'll talk about micro and macro markets, we had more of a micro market than the rest of the macro market of Canada, where people were laid off by the tens of thousands in Southern Ontario who were affected by the subprime crash and the lack of spending and all that kind of stuff, especially in the automotive industry. Some in the IT industry and things like that. But that all of the gloom and doom we were hearing east didn't happen out in that it wasn't happening here. That was happening elsewhere. Well, there was some stabilization in 2010, 2011, especially when Jill mentioned that we got the shipbuilding contract with our NATO commitment to build ships here in Nova Scotia. It was a $26 billion infusion in our local economy that put a lot of confidence in spending. And then there was another spike of purchasing. And then that planed out in about 2013. So tail end of 2013, the markets came down, 2014, 15. They were buyer's markets at that time. So we'll talk about what's the difference between a buyer's market, seller's market, and a balanced market. And then 16, confidence started building, 17, 18, 19. Markets were very active. And we'll talk because there's a word shift that you're going to hear in this. And that's a famous Gary Keller word because he's been saying that since we were in New Orleans. I believe it was New Orleans in 2018 for our convention. And Gary was like, shift is coming. Either 2018 or 2019. Pandemic pushed the shift off, but he said this is just being postponed, guys, get ready. And it's going to be worse now than it was going to be when I first said this shift is coming, which means when the markets are overperforming, there's always a correction and there's a shift, and then you have to adjust your business based on that, right? And so it was pretty cool to watch those market trends, but we're going to get into that, and you'll see, you'll connect with that with that example here shortly when we start getting through the course material. Okay, so introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself and how long you've been in.
Rena, as we met last class, and
You are
Rena.
Rena, okay.
3 weeks.
Right. Okay, 3 weeks. Okay.
Absolutely, you've been encouraged by this lady inside me for the last 2
Movie,
years.
yeah.
Rena, you should come and join Real Estate. So
Great.
let's give it a 2 years of brainwashing. So now I'm an HR by profession and
Okay.
I'm a realtor by passion. So I keep saying jokingly that I manage the whole supply chain HR, I help you land the job, you get the money, then you buy the house for me.
Perfect.
So that's who I am, 3 weeks in.
Okay. Awesome. Rena, welcome. Nice to meet you.
Kristen, and I just got my license yesterday.
Kristen,
As a
congratulations.
coach as well.
Welcome to the club.
Thanks.
You're local to Halifax?
Yes, I live in West.
It's Bedford.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, nice to meet you and welcome.
Matthew Perry.
Matthew.
That's before.
Yeah.
I got out in 2019 at the military and then right on course. And got my license right at the beginning of 2020, right during before COVID.
Wow. Yeah. How'd you find the ride?
Sorry.
Yeah. Were you active during COVID?
At least 6 times my first.
All right, perfect. It was quite a time to learn and get into real estate during the pandemic. It really was, because most of the rules didn't apply back then, right? Most of the rules didn't apply.
To learn new rules.
Absolutely, yeah. A new way of doing business for us old dogs that saw the markets for a 10-year period from 1998 to 2008. There was a very steady increasing market, and we did see multiple offers fairly often back there and things like that. But then it cooled off a while, and so multiple offers came back when the markets heated up, and it was an overdrive during the 2020 right to basically even now. I mean, I'm getting into multiple offers in the more affordable price range. You don't usually see it in the higher price ranges right now, but anything that's more affordable, and now that seems to be upwards of 450,000, anything there and under. We're constantly getting multiple offers, and preemptive offers are happening. I lost two properties this weekend past because sellers accepted preemptive offers. So, yeah, so that's happening. So it's interesting.
Hey, I'm Chris. I will be licensed exactly 1 year tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Almost happy anniversary.
I think I told Jillian this, when I've had a hell of education in real estate. I've been buying and selling my homes for
Okay.
25 years. My first house was FSBO, and then I bought and sold a while. That I had a house that was under offer down. And
Oh my.
I bought a house as is where it is. So, and I've renovated all of them, and I'm sick of building.
Chris really likes a challenge, doesn't he?
Clearly, I'm a
Right?
sucker for punishment. So, and my background is in marketing and sales, real estate. I've lived it in our way, so it's a good fit. I like it here.
Awesome. All right. Well, I don't think we've ever met, Chris, but we have. I apologize, but good to see you. Thanks a lot for joining. Anybody online that we have today? Shedrick, you're in. All right. You and I are familiar. Shedrick's been doing some open houses for a property, by the way. Shedrick, we sold it last night, brother.
Congrats.
Yeah, we got our offer together at 10 to 8 tonight. My favorite time to do business. All right. Oh, good to see you, Shedrick. Who else do we have online? I can't read that far.
We have May and Maggie.
All right, May, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's May, and I am very new to real estate as well. I just been for 3 weeks here, so I'm eager to learn and see what it's like. And I'm not there because I teach online as well. So I sometimes have to run in the middle of a session, but I try to get as much as I can out of it. But yeah, anyways, it's nice to meet you, and I'm looking forward to hearing about your experiences.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining us. I take it by saying that you would be here, but you're teaching online. You're in Halifax area?
I'm in the Halifax area. Yep.
Okay, good stuff. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Nice to meet you, May.
Nice to meet you too.
And Maggie, did you say?
Maggie.
Maggie? Okay, you're up.
Hi. I've been licensed since December, so fairly recently. It was a quiet winter.
Okay.
I have experience basically in insurance before this, and it was time for a change. So here I am.
All right. Welcome aboard. Now I detect that you have a French accent.
Yes, I'm from Montreal.
Okay. My wife is as well. She's from LaSalle. That's where she was.
Yeah, I know. We talked a
you
lot
met her, eh?
together.
Okay, good
Yeah.
stuff. Okay, so later on, we're going to be talking in the second session about value propositions, and sometimes when we talk about building your unique value proposition, one of the things that separates you from other people, well, in Maggie's case, the fact that she's, I was going to say bilingual, will help her cater to a certain clientele. So anybody that comes in that might be Quebecois or Acadian, French, she definitely would have an advantage over me. Because I've had military members or a lot of RCMP members transfer into Nova Scotia or Halifax specifically. Sometimes they really feel more comfortable if they communicate in their own language. Sometimes our language is lost in translation, where she would have an advantage over that. So that would be a great asset for her specifically. And maybe one of the focuses that she would have in terms of connecting with her market and knowing her clientele would be military relocation or RCMP relocation, right? Because we do have a lot of francophone clientele that come in, and be able to connect with somebody who's bilingual would be a very big advantage for her. So welcome, Brookfield. You can just go on Brookfield, just Brookfield relocation, and it'll funnel you right to where you want to go. If you haven't registered for that, try and register for it. I don't.
You need 2 years.
Oh, you need 2 years of experience? Okay, all right. So yeah, you got a ways to go before you can sign up on the list. I mean, I don't. It's an open broker policy in Brookfield. It used to be just specifically for Royal LePage, but then they opened it up because military members were complaining. I have a good friend who's an agent, and I want to use them, and because they're at Remax, I can't. I have to go with a Royal LePage agent. Like, no, that's not right. So they opened it up to be open broker policy with Brookfield relocation, and the clientele, the client can choose who they want to work with. If you're on a list and they're like, well, I'm moving to Nova Scotia and I don't know anybody there, so who should I work with? They have a big list of people. I sat on that list for about 12 years and never once did I get a relocation. I was just like, no, I'm signed, take me off, right? I'll do my own thing. And I did work with a lot of military members transferring in and out. Just because you're not on the list doesn't mean that you can't represent them in buying and selling. If they choose you, then you're their agent. Okay. I'm having a hell of a time trying to get things going here. For some reason, I get the circle of death constantly going round and round, and I don't know why. So if it's going to keep going, I'll just flop over there. It's not the best place for me to see, so I can't be reached.
And if you just want to join the Zoom one here, I could put the slides up on there. So when you click, your screen will just change.
There we go. You must have the magic touch, because what you just did, I did 10 times already.
Slowly.
Yeah.
There's a portal between our offices where if you
Is that
walk
right?
from her office to my office, it
And
magically
it
starts
just happens to
working.
work, right?
Yeah.
Right on. Okay, so I'll just get started. So I have an instructor copy. I have the instructor copy. Kind of tells me how to run the flow of the meeting. We're going to get off script from time to time. So just because it's a lot more interactive when you do. Okay, so the first part is connecting with your market. Well, all right.
You probably won't make it to the command part before I have to go, so you can
Yeah. What time are we now?
9:23.
Okay, so we're going to try and get through the material fairly quickly, right? We'll try and get it done by 11:30, probably at the latest. Okay. So we'll move through it. All right. So connecting with your market. Okay. Course overview, real estate expert of choice, spark your career, embrace your job. So you guys covered those first two, I assume Monday and Tuesday. Was everybody in part of Ignite for Monday and Tuesday?
Or just Monday. We're doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Oh, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Okay, so it was just Monday. Okay, so you did those two, spark your career and embrace your job. So what are kind of some of the highlights that you guys took away from that? You share, anybody online or in the room, can you share some of the things that you took away that you're like, okay, good to know, right? This helps me get a foothold. Umi, yeah.
I took away that I should be more to the community.
Yeah. Ah, okay. And so what does that entail specifically for you? Right? Be more visible, yeah, participate more in community events. This is something that's falls into Jill's purview as the productivity coach. When people are saying, well, I don't really know what I should be doing to to introduce myself and my services and what I can do to help people in their real estate goals. And so that's what Jill would probably come up and say, here's a list of things that activities that you could implement into your schedule and your business plan in order to grow your business and introduce yourself to people that might have that need in real estate. And so what type of things would you do in a community? Does anybody have any ideas? I'll throw a couple out for us.
Well, if you are, like, volunteering is always a good one, to give certain passion for, help animals or, shelters, anything like that. It's always a good idea. Also, if you're part of the community, like, if you're a religious community that you might be part of, you might be part of football, sports, anything like that. So any kind of community or anything that you're involved in,
Absolutely.
you want to make it work.
And so I had a gal on my team that was looking to expand her market share in the community that she lived, and she joined some of the community organizations. And one was to fight for a community center for her neighborhood. They eventually got it. This was off the Beachville Lakeside Timberley area, and now they have a brand new community center. And so she sat on the board, and she got 3 listings when she was on that board for 2 years. Right, just because she was networking with people and talking, and her primary objective was not real estate related, it was just to help and be involved in the community. And when you come from a position of contribution or a direction of contribution, you will know that the reward will come back by default. Right, you don't have to go in there with the objective that I got to get as much business as I can because I'm volunteering myself. If you go in with the pure intent of helping, that will be returned. You will be rewarded for that. So that's great. So did anything else come out of last Monday session for you guys?
Way the fact that you customize it to your own style, what suits you.
Mhm.
Like not everything or every way of region will suit everyone.
Right.
So we need to find what actually works for us and then focus on it and building.
Absolutely.
I also got a very big reality check. Like I thought when I was first speaking to Jill, like, okay, what do you want to do in the first day? I said, maybe 12 to 15 deals, but then that was never my head. It's a reality check that first year to be thinking anything beyond 2 to 5, especially because I'm also long time in real estate. So yes, more of a reality check done, but definitely connecting more with the passion side of it. That yes, I love it. So there was this line that everybody can make it happen with you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's a good point, because the more energy you bring, the more the client will feed off that. And in this section, I don't know if it's your value proposition or connecting with your market, it talks about your attitude. Okay, so there's certain qualities that you should be able to, and I think it's in the value side of things. And I had to pause and give that a little bit of thought, right? Because that term in that context was a bit new to me. So I had to ponder that for a little bit and said, you know what? It's the attitude that you bring when you deal with your clientele. Okay, if you come with a very alarmist point, you're going to have your clients on edge all the time because you're always bringing up the negative, right? The scary stuff about real estate. So that's all depends on your approach and your attitude that you bring to the transaction and that relationship you have with your clientele. And so that's a good point. If you have that passion and that energy, and I'll tell you, conviction is convincing. If you totally are you have conviction or belief in this something, then you can be very persuasive and convincing in your relationships when you deal with your buyers and sellers or any consumer at that point, right? And when you have their confidence, you usually have their trust, and that's the biggest thing in real estate. Confidence and trust to build that relationship will take you forever. You will do business with them, you'll do business again with them, and they will refer and give you recommendation, or they will recommend you to their family, friends, and colleagues. So it'll take you a long way. All right, does anybody else want to share anything before we move on? Okay, we're all good. All right, so next slide. Gary Keller wrote a book. I think it was with Jay Papasan. Don't quote me on that, but they put together the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. Laura Lee should have introduced you to that book when you first signed on with Keller Williams. Encouraged you to read it. Everybody at KW should read it. A lot of great. It kind of unveils real estate from beginning to end, and there's a lot of substance in from page 1 to the end of the book. And you know, there's some wisdom that comes out of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent that they put in. You'll see it threaded all through the Ignite program, where they'll pluck something out and talk and make reference about the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. So here's the truth. If it's been done in another market, it can be done in your market. Once it's been done, no matter where, it's just a matter of finding out how it can be possible in your world. Okay. We get a lot of influence, and the Maritimes generally are not as receptive to change, difference. We're not as progressive a lot of times as like upper Canadian markets or Western markets, or even south of the border in the US. They find they're very well, they're very aggressive in their approaches, or assertive in their approaches, where we're a little bit more reserved in our approaches. And so for a quick example, Bill Nesby, where I worked at another brokerage that was Exit, he was a coach and he teaches door knocking. That topic came up yesterday in our mentorship program. We had a meeting, and there was a gal in the room that just said, there is no way ever I would door knock. Just don't even ask me to do it. And if whatever. So the question was posed to Jill was, is that a requirement? Are people forced to go door knocking? Because if it's somebody like me, they'll probably quit real estate. That kind of attitude. A lot of people with this script, the first thing when you knock on the door and you ask is, hi, my name is Chad. I'm with Keller Williams Select Realty. When do you plan on moving? That has a high impact. That is a shock value almost. Somebody comes to the door and you just say, you're a stranger. When do you plan on moving? When I knocked on my very first door and I delivered that script, I swear to God, it was like I threw ice water in his face. What? Me? No, never. That was his response to me. Me? No, never. Because it had such high, like, to the point. You don't go to the door and say, hi, how are you today? And none of that. Just get it off the table. Like, we're here to deliver and find out whether or not these people are moving. If they are, great. So many people in the East Coast were like, that would never work here. People would be offended if you did that here, because he lives in British Columbia, right? It might work out there, but that doesn't work here. And that's the limiting belief. And what Gary wants to convey to you at this point is get over your limiting beliefs. If it works there, these are human beings. It will also work here. You just have to find a way of making it work locally, right? In your own business, in your own market.
Got my 9th, and I got my first listing.
No, wow, good for you. Right?
I was the first. And I did it 2015 and the market sucked.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So next slide, know your market. Knowing and connecting with your market is all about research and preparation. One of the steps that's the most important thing when you sit with a buyer or a seller, the research and knowing your specific market, and I alluded to a micro macro market and what the difference between the two. Now, micro, obviously smaller, right? Which means it's more localized. Macro is the bigger picture. What would affect whatever federal policy in Ottawa is affecting us locally. Right? If they put out initiatives like government initiatives for housing affordability initiative, and we're giving a certain tax rebate or something like that. That's a federal thing, and that can happen, and that will affect us locally. So we have to talk about the difference between a macro and micro market. You have to connect with your unique market and understand it specifically. So being prepared when you meet with buyers and sellers about their specific needs in the marketplace. You can't just focus on their neighborhood, because there's so many things that can influence that neighborhood that you have to see the broader picture, right? You should be aware of, and this is when we have the opportunity to influence the learning of the newer agents, or even some agents that have experience, but are not practicing it to that level. Some people have like, yeah, I've been in the business for 3 or 4 years now, but I really don't have a firm grasp on my business at this point. And then they'll come to Ignite or the other training, and we try to have that influence to say, if you are going into a neighborhood, you're going to be listing a house, there's a lot of things that you should consider. And I start with global affairs, country affairs, provincial affairs, municipal affairs, and then right down to your community. Okay, what are all the impacts all the way down? Because things that are happening globally will impact the market. Things that will happen countrywide will impact your market. Things that are happening provincially will impact your market. So one of the things that I threw out last year with a lot of people was Tim Houston's mandate is to double the population of Nova Scotia. So when my buyers and sellers say, well, should I sell now? There's no bad time to sell. Whenever it's right for the seller. Buyers constantly ask, is this a good time to buy? There's no bad time to buy, but there's always a better time to buy in some cases, right? Should I hold off and wait to buy later? There's pros and cons to that. But you have to look at the influencers in your market, whether it's globally, country, province, or community. What are the things that are going to influence that market to allow you to educate your clients to make a better decision on what they should be doing at that point? Okay. Characteristics of the market. Okay. What kind of markets do you know? Okay, when people are asking, is it a good time for me to sell? Type of market that you're in. What are the three types of markets? Do you guys know three types of markets?
Buyers,
Climates?
buyers, sellers, and balanced.
Right. Buyer's market, seller's market, and a balanced market. Okay. Those are the three kinds of conversations that you have. I've had them multiple times. All right. So when I said to Jill, you came in at a time we'll reflect on when we get into the micro macro and the type of markets. So when I got in, it was a fairly balanced market in 96 to 98, fairly balanced. I was allowed to navigate my way through, learn the real estate industry, and then all of a sudden the tides changed a little bit and there was a shift in the market. And it had momentum, more buyers and sellers, so it became a seller's market. And then after that came and went, after a decade, planed off, and it was still a fairly balanced market. Nobody was doing anything. Sellers were not selling unless they had a real good reason to. Some personal pressure. Wasn't generally a choice to change. It was usually a separation, a job transfer, job loss, something like that forced people to trade in real estate. So it was a different time after the subprime market kind of collapsed. But 2013, 14, and 15, it was very much a buyer's market. Right? So we went through a decade of a seller's market, which usually happens, and then the correction came. And it became a buyer's market after that. So when people were selling, like Jill knocked on the ninth door and got a listing, listings became more abundant, but she had a challenge because it was very difficult to talk to a seller to say, I know you might have only bought your house, and I've had this conversation many times with people who purchased in 10, 11, and 12, 2010, 2011, and 12, to say, what you paid for your house, you may still get that money back, but it's going to cost you to sell your house this time. You're not going to get all your money back. So if you paid $400,000 for it, it's still only worth $400,000. But then you have all the real estate fees, which is like maybe $3,000 for real estate fees to sell a $400,000 house, plus maybe pay penalties at banks, moving costs, lawyers' fees. It costs you upwards of 25 to 30 grand to sell this house. That's coming right off the equity that you put into the house 5 years ago. What do you mean? Don't houses appreciate over time? They do usually, but if you wait long enough. Now you're selling at not an optimal time. Why is that? Well, because there are way more sellers than there are buyers, so it's a buyer's market. Okay? And so Jill had to explain that to her client when she was listing. That's the reality, and that's your job to be able to explain that. And if it's a more balanced market, which seemed to be 2017, 2018, 2019, very balanced markets, right? It leveled off where people had choice, but they didn't have choice to wait very long because there were a healthy abundance of buyers and a healthy abundance of sellers, that everybody had a fair pick. They weren't under a lot of pressure like the shift in 2020, where all of a sudden it just became a massive seller's market. And sellers wrote the rule book. What I say goes, otherwise you don't buy my house. And that went on for almost a 3-year period of time, and before there was a correction and the government took control of the market. Okay, so that's knowing your market in terms of the whether it is, and I better
How would you say?
so throw that out to you. I'll give you my interpretation of it because it depends, and we'll get to why my opinion is it depends, because it's specific. What do you think the market is? How do you feel the market is right now? The buyer's market, seller's market, or do you feel this market is balanced? So it depends. Yeah, that's my view too. And depends on price. What else?
Also, like in the optimal rate, as you was suggesting, the more affordable properties, I would say it's still a seller's market, given the fact that the interest rates are going down. There are more buyers who can afford it. That demand push inflation is there, so yeah, I would still say it's a seller's market. Not for the higher age group.
Right. Yeah. Jill, location.
What if I'm just so?
If you were to ask me that 3 years ago, in the heat of like the beginning part of 2022, right? July of 2022 was the shifting point. The government stepped in and they made an aggressive move on interest rates and it stalled. It was like a car that ran out of gas. July and August of 2022, it was like, holy smokes. We went from harem scarum and then there's nobody. Nobody's doing anything right now. As the interest rates spiked, the government all season long, from the fall right up until May, we're increasing the interest rates by a little bit at a time and sending a message, guys, you're overpaying, you're overinflating the market. It's dangerous for you. It's dangerous for our banking system. Cool it off. Stop spending as much. And the momentum was still building and building. People were still, they weren't paying attention, even though they had 3 rate hikes. The 4th rate hike was 0.5%. And then finally they said, nobody's listening. Wham, almost a full percentage increase all at once in June of 2022. Stalled the market. And the message was, we are going to keep doing this until we drive prices back down and stop overpaying. So then buyers finally reached that understanding. Wait, what if we wait? And if they are bringing prices down, if I wait a little bit, then I can get a better price. And the whole psyche played into that. And that's exactly what happened. Right? But it was a seller's market all through that period of time. Today, you ask whether or not it's a buyer's market, balanced market, or seller's market. All 3 do exist that I see in our marketplace today. It's not in all places. So for example, I was in the south end of Halifax and I was doing a listing presentation. I looked at it and it said, funny enough, the south end of Halifax right now fits into balanced market. They were like, oh, really? So I said, but the good news is that's taking all real estate into consideration. We take specifically your style of home, still in the seller's market. There are only 3 other houses like yours in the entire south end. So if somebody wants to buy a house like yours, one of 3 choices, right? And you're the only person. There was low end, high end. They were going to be right in the middle. I said, you're going to play well. It's going to be in your favor. So determining that, I guess, is the next step. How do you determine buyer's market, balanced market, or seller's market? Look at the types of markets that are on the screen. What constitutes a buyer's market? Having more than 7 months of inventory. Okay, I say 6 and above. Right, at 6 and above, there's a lot of choice out there for buyers, and so they're able to negotiate terms and conditions and price. Okay, more strongly than against the seller in a seller's market, where hey, if you don't take it, the next buyer is 5 minutes. 5 minutes. They're probably waiting on the front steps as we speak. Okay, balanced market from 5 to 7 months of inventory. I usually think 4 to 6 to me feels like and I'm not going against the grain of the teachings here, but the South End property was 4.2 months of inventory. I said, so you are officially in a balanced market, with the exception of their style of home. And the seller's market is less than 5 months of inventory. They say 4 or less. If you got a seller's, right now, buyers have choice. And so I'm experiencing this. I have experienced this so far this year. I was like, holy smokes. I'm getting more calls from sellers than I am from buyers, which to me, and I was getting that since January. And as closer we get, like February and March, sellers are reaching out. Okay, we're coming to the market this spring. Can you come over and talk to us about price, condition? What do we have to do to our house to get ready? When do you think the ideal time is to hit the market? All those kind of things. Those questions come into play. And so I started feeling like there was a change. The tides were changing here in the market. Seemingly more people coming to the market with homes, and I'm getting less calls from buyers. Oh, we'll pick up, we'll put a pin in that for a quick second. And we'll come back to that because it's identifying and connecting with your marketplace later on that we'll come back to that conversation. Okay, so how do we change markets? How do we go from a buyer's market to a balanced market or a seller's market, or go directly from a seller's market into a buyer's market? What kind of conditions would happen in the world of economics for that to have happened?
Catastrophe.
Sorry?
Catastrophe.
Yeah, could be. Interest rates are a big one. Right? Interest rates are a big one. Trade wars, 100%. The economic factors in the world, trade wars are probably the biggest thing. If you're not paying attention, and this is where in my teachings with the people that I mentor and the people on my team, I always talk to them and say, you have to be aware. Have to be aware of your market, not just your neighborhood and, you know, the 3 or 4 sales that recently happened. You have to step back and have perspective on the macro markets, right? Trade wars, how is that going to affect us? Because coming into this year, I've had people last year saying, should I put my house on the market now? I've had houses on the market and people are like, should I, not getting the response out of the market that I was hoping for? Should I take the house off the market and sell next year? We don't know what's going to happen next year. I had a lady that moved to Ontario that called me and specifically thanked me because she was concerned about underselling. She called me this spring to thank me. I convinced her to sell last year because she was in a market that she would not have even gotten that price this year based on these trade wars that erupted, you know, that's happening throughout the world with the US. And so she's like, I'm so glad I trusted your advice and I went with what you said, because it would have been so stressed coming into this to this market. And I've been kind of watching after the fact. Did I leave money on the table? Did we sell at the wrong time? And she called me just specifically to say, I really thank you for your guidance on that, right? Because it was the economic factors on a macro scale that really affected her. Another big thing that can change on not quite a bigger scale, but localized. What are some of the local factors that might be affecting a real estate market?
Factories of,
Yeah, employment. It's a huge thing, one way or the other. So, Maggie, are you still there?
Yes,
Where do you live, Maggie?
right now?
Yeah, did you say West Bedford?
No, I'm in Lance. I'm in East Hands.
Oh, you're in East Hants. Okay. So when you look at employment now, if you're in Lance, you couldn't be in a better place right now, because that's the next hot spot for real estate development. It's the corridor into the city. West Bedford was the best performing market that we've had since, well, ever in the history of, I think, of our MLS system. West Bedford has been the most desirable place to live, with the most amount of inventory increase in values. Was outperforming right up to Ontario. Lance Hants County East market is the next to go, and it's going to be very much like the West Bedford market. Right? There's things that are going to that might inhibit the momentum and growth in the rate that it grows, but that is the next big area of expansion. So you're in a hot spot, right? Just because the market and affordability has shifted in your direction. Does anybody know? Are you following any of the military expansions? Yeah, he's retired from military now, so he doesn't follow it anymore. Okay, so Canada has a lot of pressure on military spending right now, right? What do you think they're doing? Opening up the purse strings to contribute to NATO, but they're also developing their own defense strategies. Does anybody hear what's going on in Greenwood over the next 3 to 5 years? It's my goosebumps going, because what I want to do is I just want to run down and be a Greenwood agent. There are 500 new employment opportunities because they are doing their drone development and research in Greenwood. That's starting now. I have 2 son-in-laws that are in the Air Force, and one is definitely trying to get back to Green, but he's like, oh, great timing, because he's up in Goose Bay. He wants to get to Greenwood, but the real estate values are going to start going up on him. Well, he should have bought last year. Right, so if they're infusing 500 new families into a community, guess what's gonna need to happen? New construction. Well, having good development land, talking to developers, buying land to say, develop it because we're gonna need housing down here. Talking to the local contractors, they're gonna need brand new housing down there. So that is not gonna be happening everywhere. It's gonna be happening where those employment factors are causing an increase in demand. Go the other way. Anybody from the New Glasgow area or know anything about New Glasgow? Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh, were you? Well, what was one of the major employers in New Glasgow? Abercrombie? Michelin? Okay. When the Abercrombie pulp and paper mill the pulp mill went under, like they closed the doors, hundreds of jobs were immediately lost. So that doesn't have a positive influence on the market at that point, right? It's not, doesn't smell like boiled cabbage anymore. Yeah. Oh, anyway, so those are the economic factors that can affect your client's decision of buying and selling. And it's up to you guys to educate yourselves and know about these things. So when you're asked, is this a good time? When you sit down and you talk about the pricing strategy, maybe you can say, I'm a little nervous for you as the buyer paying this kind of price because these economic factors, there's maybe some policy changes are coming down the road. Maybe you should hold off because the interest rates are going to drop, but is that always a good thing for a buyer to wait? Sellers, oh, well, should I be in the market on May or should I be in the market in March? Well, know your market well enough to know and give them the sound advice. Everybody's listing their house in May. Do you think there might not be a glut of new listings on the market, which creates more of a buyer's market than in favor of the seller? Right? So you have to take those types of things into consideration. Look at your market stats, know your market, and be able to interpret it properly for your clients. Okay, so inventory. Okay, this is kind of how do you identify what type of market you're in? Are you in a buyer's market, seller's market, or balanced market? Okay, so the first thing you need to know is what is the inventory of your market? Okay, does anybody here have? I know for the new agents, it's not that fair, but anybody that has a year of experience or more, do you concentrate on a specific community or market within Halifax or Nova Scotia?
Yes.
What is your market?
There's two subdivisions in Middle Sackville.
Okay, so you're in Middle Sackville. Okay, and so not to put you on the spot, but do you know the inventory of your market right now?
The sale,
All of the above.
that's the one for sale, and I know that one neighborhood, their turnover rate is a lot better than the other.
Okay.
The other neighborhood.
Fair enough. So, you know how many months of inventory there are in your marketplace?
I think going 3.8 right now.
Okay, so under 4. So it still falls in just barely, but still to me, it still falls into a seller's market situation. Okay, so when you're sitting down and you're talking like I did with the last folks that I met down the south, and I said, well, you have 4.2 months of inventory in your marketplace, which is pushing you into a balanced market, but that includes all types. Semi-detached homes, townhouses, condos, detached homes. But when I isolate detached homes and styles like theirs, there was only 3. And I said, well, okay, there you go. You're officially in your own property, your own style. You are in a seller's market, a strong seller's market. You're in a strong position to be able to sell for the price and get more of an aggressive price on your home. What is the average number of days that the house stays on the market? Okay, this is a surprising turnaround because COVID, there was 4 days. You could sell it the first day, but average market time when you go back COVID, because everybody was holding offers for 4 days. Listed on Thursday, sold by Monday. So there's your 4 days on the market. 5 days if you were like, okay, we're going to add another day to have this bidding war. Okay, but on average in your marketplace, Chris, do you know how many people, how long it takes to sell a house in your market?
The last things in the 50s.
50 days.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so when you're sitting down to assess a seller's needs, 50 days on the market is about average in that marketplace of Middle Sackville. So Some of the markets that I've gone to, I've seen is usually between 27 and 29 days, under 30 days, right? So if you're pricing for a 30-day sale, your seller is great, that works for me. Other people's motivations are higher, and how to use that information, gauging your seller's motivation. Well, do you want to sell sooner than that, or is it okay if that you have a 30-day sale? Because once you sell, then you have a closing period, which puts you probably 2.5 months, 3 months down the road before you actually close and pass the keys to the buyer. So does that fit with your plans? And then based on your knowledge of how long it takes to sell a house like theirs, then you can gauge whether or not it fits and suits the needs of that seller. Okay, what is the average sale price of a home? Okay. People want to know that. Like, what is the average sale price of a home? So if you have an average house, this is probably what you would expect. If you have an above average house with unique features, more desirable features, you would expect more. If you don't measure up, you would expect less. Okay, so you should know the average sale price of a home. So what would we call Middle Sackville right now, Chris? Do you know? 560? 516. Okay, does anybody know what it is overall in Halifax? Okay. All of MLS for the whole province is like 426 the last time I checked, 426,000. Okay, we'll talk about where do we find this type of information and how to do some of these calculations in a second. But so based on the inventory, what type of market are you in? And we kind of threw that around. There's different areas for different reasons. The higher end, yes, there are more high end sales, which means there are less people coming with big money spending, 800,000 plus on a home. There's less buyers for that market right now. So you're seeing the inventory increasing in the high-end real estate market. The affordability real estate market, there's still a need for housing and affordable housing. There are a lot of buyers because a sad reality and what everybody's complaining about the States is you're padding and making the rich richer. There's becoming a larger divide between people having money and people not having money. And so there are more people with less money, unfortunately. That population is getting bigger. So more people with less money, that's putting pressure on the affordability of homes in this market. Okay, make contacts with lenders in your area. Okay, so that you can stay up to date in your market and answer questions that your clients have. Because we did talk, what are the influencers on shifting markets, right? What increases, what decreases activity in the market? Obviously, interest rates and lender policies. Okay, really loved what Mark Carney did. Okay, maybe not everybody in the room voted for him, but I really loved what he did back in 2008. It was before that. Saw the writing on the wall. It was fairly new in real estate at that time. Like again, 1996. I was much younger, obviously, and for some reason, I just felt this was wrong and irresponsible. What is going on out here? This is dangerous. And I wasn't even that experienced in business at this point. It didn't seem to matter to a lot of people what was happening. These policies that they were changing to throw money from the banks out to people, that was a high risk situation. They came up with 30-year amortizations. So when they changed the policies, more buyers came into the market. It makes your monthly payment smaller. So you bump up the amortization, and they just recently did this for first-time home buyers. 30-year amortizations. Okay, great. They did that. No down payment. Didn't have to have any money to buy a house, which is ridiculous, but it was no down payment programs. At insult to injury, the banks were also offering 3%, up to 3% cash back when you close. So second you got the keys to your house, you had an upside down mortgage, owed more than the house was worth. And that's not good for any market. It really isn't. I said this to a CIBC guy because he closed a deal for me and he used the guy's credit card to close the deal. I'm like, holy smokes. This is so irresponsible. This is dangerous. This is so dangerous that everybody is getting over leveraged in debt to buy houses that one, there's not going to be any equity in their homes if they decide to sell in 3 to 5 years. They may not they're not strong enough borrowers, what are they doing going out and borrowing? Because they're just going to get in trouble and the deficiencies are going to go crazy. They're not going to pay, and then foreclosures. Well, lo and behold, I went on a 15-year run of selling foreclosures. I don't think there's anybody in this province, and I will quote this, that has more foreclosure experience than I do as a real estate agent. I did 15 years at high volume of foreclosures. And there was only one other guy that I saw who was doing similar amount. I was doing more, but Sandy Rutledge, but he's now retired. He was with Domus Realty, had a really good relationship with CIBC. Enough, it was the CIBC lender, the mortgage specialist, that I said, this is dangerous and this is irresponsible. Mark Carney then took over the Bank of Canada and he cleaned it all up. Rolled back to 25-year amortizations. You have to have skin in the game with at least 5% payment. Your stress tests started coming out. You don't just qualify for today's mortgage rate, you qualify for a 2% higher than that. Because the mark on renewal, the rates will go up, and we need to know that you're going to be able to make those payments, right? That was good lending policies. So that's what happens. You sit and you talk to your clients about lending and how that affects markets. Okay? Interest rates, obviously, if they go up, it slows down buying like they did in 2022. July, wham, stalled the market because they just said, you're not listening, wham, and they hit us in the face with a big interest rate and stalled the market immediately. Has impact and effect. There are a number of lenders out there, mortgage specialists out there that constantly send me updates, and I read them. Now, I've got 3 now, and I'm happy because now they're kind of overlapping. I don't see much difference in the information that comes my way, so I limit mine to 3. So I have three mortgage specialists that keep me apprised of what's going on in lending. If there's a change in policy, whether it be new construction, all right, we're not seeing new construction moving and turning over as much as we should. So we're going to start incentivizing people to go buy new construction because builders are sitting on inventory or they're not moving it, not enough of it. Need to, because new construction does have a ripple effect in the real estate in the economy, and so keep in touch with your lenders. Keep up to date. What is today's, that's a question that's constantly asked, isn't it? What's today's interest rate? Okay. Oh, I'm not sure. That's not a good answer. If you are the professional and they are leaning on you for that information and advice, you should be very knowledgeable. This is what this particular module covers. Okay. Economic factors. Does anybody have any other input other than that based on lending and interest rates?
I would just say I think it's worth doing that. It's not just a poor lending policy that can put people in an upside down state like bubble in 2022 as well. I've got 2 prospects in my neighborhood and they paid $180,000 to get neighborhood. She's like, yeah. I said I'd probably get you what you paid for it, but that's about it right now. So so previous bumps affect what we're doing right now in the market as well. So it's not just today's market, it's 5 years ago.
Point. The call that I said that I took coming in, and I was sitting in the parking lot for 10 minutes having this call, was a Sydney agent who's now listed a house for sale. The people paid like $960 or $980 for it, and it's on at $899 now. Paying $32,000 minimum. Commissions plus tax. They're already losing $50,000, $60,000. So they're taking a $120,000 hit by selling their house. So definitely. That's a different story though. That's the shifting market. But when it comes to interest rates and lenders, this is just kind of one of those things. That's one of those facets that come up in conversations with your clients often. So really make sure you're paying attention to what's going on there. If you're working primarily with first-time home buyers, you want to know what advantages are out there and challenges with borrowing money for first-time home buyers. Okay. Economic factors. We did touch on this earlier about what affects certain marketplaces and why one might not be a seller's market as opposed to a buyer's market or a balanced market. So it's just economic factors play an important role in an agent's understanding of the market. Okay. What's the employment or unemployment rate like in your market? Okay, that's an important thing to understand, right? If there's gonna be a bump in employment rate, means there's gonna be a need for housing and values will go up. Adversely, same thing will happen if they shut the doors on factories and jobs, then market values will go down. If I was, we have investors. I have a guy that I work with out of our Kentville office, and so he and I have been working together recently with investors. Great, because he's only a stone's throw away from the Greenwood market. If I had investors that would go down to that market, because everybody sometimes like to stay local. I want to invest just right here. Take your money to Greenwood and buy a fourplex. Buy a 12-unit apartment building. Okay? There's going to be need for housing down there. Rentals are, because some people will be transferred in, they're only going to be in 3 to 5 year contract, and then they're going to be sent somewhere else. So they're going to rent instead of buy. Okay? Some people are not in a position at this point financially. Maybe their credit is not built. Maybe they don't have, maybe they're new to the military program. And so they don't have the ability to jump into buying a house and they need a place to stay.
30-year-long wait lists for PMQ.
I was just going to say that in especially right now, it's over a year in Eastern Passage. Over a year in Eastern Passage to get into the member military, what is it, private military quarters?
Yeah.
PMQs. And so there's over a year wait to get into one. So our daughter is she and her husband, who is working in Shearwater, live out by us in Prospect, and they came to us and said, we'd like to get into doing real estate investment with you guys. So Laura and I have started our investment career at university for the kids. And so we saw what I was able to do with my last investment property. And she's like, Brad and I now are kind of bored. They're married, newly married for a couple of years, no kids yet. And they're pacing the floors like, what now? What are we going to do? So they came and said, we'd love to do what you just did on that investment property. So can we look into this and start doing this investment property thing with you? Brad wants to focus on Eastern Passage because he sees all of the military guys over there griping about the fact that there's no place to live. Prime example, find and feed the need. Need is for housing and for military members there. So go and find some land and convince a developer to put up a 12, 14, 30 unit building over there. Met with Colton Collins and Jason Ellison. They were door knocking and they stumbled across this guy who had this massive 1 acre parcel of land. And they're like the highest and best use, right? In order to find what the value is in the property. So they brought me in to help them talk about price and stuff like that. But the commercial component was what really brought the value to that property. They're talking, okay, go talk to developers, go talk to people with deep pockets that have the ability to put up an apartment building because you can do that there. Obviously, with Brad, my son-in-law, there's a huge need for properties over in Eastern Passage for rent. Perfect. Marry them together, and there you go. Your investor would be very happy with you. Okay. Growth rate in your community. I don't honestly know where I could index that. Does anybody know? Right, growth in the community. I guess I could say how many new houses were built. Right, you can go into our MLS and say how many new starts were here specifically. But that doesn't necessarily include maybe multifamily units were built, maybe single family units were built. That's way you could gauge the growth of the community, or you could project the continuing growth. If you look at the growth patterns year over year for the last 5 years, there's a trend line. It's pretty consistent. So if you're looking at investments, right, you as a buyer and you're qualifying somebody new to the market from Ontario, let's say, why should I specifically buy there as opposed to if I buy there? Okay, you can look at the growth trend lines to say, well, you're year over year, if you buy here, we see a steady increase in value of 4% per year. It's something that's just arbitrary number. That's the growth for that market for that particular year. Year over year, it's 4%. So when you buy 6 years later, this is what you should be up by 24%. Beyond that, what also happens in a growing community? What do you think? A growing community comes along with that. Traffic, yeah, yeah, definitely something to consider. That's definitely something to consider, right? You know, if you're out in Sackville, Beaverbank Road is my nemesis. Live out on Beaverbank Road. My nemesis, hated. Hammond's Plains Road, hated. One lane this way, one lane that way, for tens of thousands of commuters every day. Oh, no, I apologize. I- Yeah. Yeah. The gray cloud over here. Oh, I'm from New Glasgow, where nobody has jobs. Yeah.
Never think about traffic.
Oh, yeah,
For the
right.
next Few years and have. Okay, so now I'm like sitting on Bedford. What? Traffic and I find myself. Read out South Asia. You don't complain about traffic.
Right? Honestly, God, yeah, very true. But so traffic, there are traffic woes. And I have said this to buyers. I just have to let you know. You could drive out if you are seriously about buying a house off the Beaverbank Road. Take a drive out anywhere between 4 and 5:30 in the afternoon on a weekday. And then tell me whether or not you still want to buy a house out there. Because if that's okay with you, because I sold one off Stokel Drive a couple of months ago. And I said the same thing. She's a nurse downtown and he works from home, so he doesn't care about the commute, but she works off hours, different hours that like 7 at night to 7 in the morning kind of thing a lot. And she's like, so I'm okay with that. So they bought, but that was a conversation that I had. So that's part of knowing your market. It's these types of market issues that they're faced with. Because they probably would be very angry with me if I did not talk to them about that. They bought out there and they were like, I had no idea there was this much traffic that I had to contend with, right? Not only that is the infrastructure that they're going to have to suffer through when they start putting on the auxiliary lanes to service the flow. There's going to be construction out there for probably the next 7 to 10 years. They have to move the sewer and water laterals. They have to expand on the size of the roads. They have to put in sidewalks, and all that's going to happen to service the needs of that. So it's going to be short-term pain for long-term gain. But when you're in it, it feels like, man, this is never going to end. 2 years of sitting in traffic every day is just driving me bonkers. So you have to look at that. But growth in the community, I look at the amenities, right? Bigger, better, newer, more modern schools, right? Because you need to have schools to service the needs. That massive school they built out there off Larry Utek Drive that used to be Kearney Lake, already modulars in the parking lot. Like when I drove by it, I had to call somebody and say, "What is this massive building they're putting on Larry Utek Boulevard?" Right?
Yeah.
I said, "I can't believe the size of this. This has got to be the biggest school that Halifax has ever seen."
It was over capacity before we even opened.
And that's the crazy part.
It's crazy compared to the schools back in New Brunswick,
Wow.
4 or 5 of like New Brunswick schools, we did that.
Right?
Only 100 students.
Unreal. And now they're modulars out in the parking lot because there's so many students. Right? Again, you know, picking a school district is very important to younger families. Schools are number one. When I have people transitioning in, the first thing that we usually talk about when they have school age children is, what are the schools like there?
Then it's hockey.
And then it's hockey. It's the hockey program that, you know, do they win? If not, I'm going to Cole Harbor. I'm going to Sydney and Nathan stomping grounds. So yes, knowing your market is it factors these types of things in, right? Amenities, crazy enough. I use a lot. I drink a lot of coffee that I have in my Keurig now. I just got so used to it. I prefer it. But when I don't, I do choose Tim Hortons. So when I leave where I live, which is Prospect Road, I would have to go out of my way to get to a Tim Hortons. But now there's one on, because the growth in the amount of people that could support another Tim Hortons franchise is on my route to out the Prospect Road by the Exhibition parking lot. That's convenient for me. I'd love to have a gas station a little closer to my home. And as the area grows, that's going to happen. We were that close to having another gas station last year. Because every time I get into Laura's car, it is hard on empty. She does not like to stop for gas. I'm like, man, I get sick and tired every time I take your car of having to fill it up for you. Ha ha ha. So anyway, so those types of things. The community center. Yeah.
Related to this.
Sure.
I'm new.
Yeah.
But one of the buyers, prospective buyers that I was talking to, I was asking, okay, so what are the communities that are well planned and are going to develop in the near future? So
Mhm.
where is my data point for that? Like, how do I know, the amenities you're talking about, the communities that are going, what is my data point for that?
So we have, so lucky for you guys, we are heavily involved in education. This is what you're here to do today, is to learn. KW is so heavy in education. So we have a full database of videos that you could go. So we have a video library on our KW website. You could go in there right now, and we have called in city planners to come and talk just to us at KW. And they are talking about the changes in zoning and bylaws, the center plan, and how it's all going to impact us in different markets, how they're trying to centralize the zoning districts, where instead of having R1, R2A, R3, it's all going to be the same zoning, right? And they're doing that. They're talking about, you can go to Halifax .ca website. You can go into the municipal planning department, and you can see all of the development applications that are in there, right? The ones that have been approved. So that's your place. That's your go-to resource.
You seen that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's big. It's big. Yep. So the other thing, government, okay, that's the last thing. Has the government made any changes to rules or regulations that might affect the housing market? Okay. Yeah. I'll tell you, that is an awesome point. I tell my clients, be ready for a slowdown. Elections, municipal elections, never. I've been through, I don't know, 6 or 8 municipal elections since my real estate career, similar to the federal and provincial elections. Provincial elections and federal elections, slow market activity every time. I have listings, and I'm like, in the last 3 weeks, I have had almost no activity on all of my listings. What's going on? One point I had to recognize, they can't see for sale signs anymore when there's elections. Stop seeing for sale signs. People are focused on, what is the government going to implement that's going to maybe impact me and affect me? My ability to finance a purchase of a home, or my my job stability. If they make shifts and they're cut, like when the federal budgets get tight and they have to pull the purse strings, where do they stop allocating money? Okay? You look at what Donald Trump did and started axing jobs all through the states. Government policies. You don't want Elon Musk coming with his chainsaw, because he's going to cut your job. He went around saying that. You are not a hardworking person and can prove that you earn the money that I give you, you're gone, right? That's session 2 that we'll see this afternoon, or after this session, about your value. You don't bring the value, you don't get the money. Sorry. And that's what they were doing, cutting jobs. So every government has their own regulations and rules. When they make those, implement those changes, that definitely can affect them. Going back to other market factors that you think might be good to investigate. If you have a seller or a buyer moving in, and I tend to look more at buyers who are like, they don't know the area and they need some counsel. If you own a house in the district, you're probably up to date on what's going on in your area. If you're not, you should know, because you're the area specialist, and you say, by the way, did you know that there was another community center ready to be built, like within walking distance of your house? It was just only announced 2 days ago. I was like, no, this is the first I'm hearing of it. So that's going to benefit them generally. What else? What else could happen to affect a marketplace? We kind of touched on some of them, like road widening will affect that marketplace. Transit, that's a great one.
Proposals for subsidized housing in certain areas.
Yeah.
When people find out about that.
So that could go good or bad.
Yeah.
Right? I know there's a lot of people, when you're a liberal, NDP supporter, Green Party, that kind of thing, you are very open to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like, you find those mindsets generally in those kind of political party followings. The more conservative supporters, they don't really think the way liberal,
My backyard.
right? Not my backyard. Like, I don't want people, when they bring subsidized housing, that type of people that brings to me. We were affected by that up in Mount Royal subdivision. We were building executive homes, big, expensive homes. People came through the open house and they were like, well, where do the kids go to school? We said, well, the Fairview district, they're out. I want to buy there because their kids are not going to school with the people from the mobile home park or the low end rental properties. Nope, my kids are not going to be mingling with those, and that's.
Or things
Right.
here,
Oh, is that right?
right next. $3 home. And it didn't sell, so now they changed it to fourplex, so the whole community is fighting.
Yeah.
Because it's,
Yeah.
you know, like it's worked out, but
Mhm.
for a lot, because we're at eight,
There you go. Right.
or else.
Yeah, that's above Fairview. Mount Royal subdivision is just above Fairview. Yeah, we were up there with a developer in 2009 and 10. So the subprime market crashed, market was flat. We were up there for 16 months, logging houses up there, and we just couldn't move them. It's just almost impossible. Okay. All right. So once you know your market and are familiar with all the important numbers, it's time to begin to build your expertise in that market. All right. You go out there and you start showing the market that you are the area specialist, right? You've gathered all your intel and now it's time to package it to be able to show the market, you know what you're doing there to be able to support them through their decision in the transaction. Okay. Okay, we talked about this, nearby restaurants, amenities, healthcare services. We're very happy. We don't have to go down to the peninsula to go to the hospital. They built the outpatient hospital in the backside of Bears Lake. Very handy for us. Anytime I list something in Timberley or Prospect, Bears Lake is always mentioned because the amenities are that close. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you're in the hub of the retail shopping district. Now that they have that outpatients clinic, nobody has to go downtown, fight for parking, all of that stuff. It's really increased interest in those marketplaces.
We need another.
We need another Costco. Yeah, it's coming. Bedford Crossings, I think. Isn't Bedford Crossings getting a Costco?
Yeah, it was supposed to be one, we've heard.
Oh, Indigo Shores, there you go.
That was
But
the rumor.
Yeah.
That was an early planning document.
Yeah, and then I heard Charlotte.
Yeah, there was supposed to be one.
They should put one, should put one in Bridgewater.
I think they should land one in Truro. A lot of people come from the North Shore, Cape Breton, Antigonish. I meet them in the lineup at Costco. They've got like, there's a locomotive of people who've got these shopping carts that are overflowing. And I'm like, holy smokes, hungry? You're putting on a big party? He said, no, going up for the neighbors. I said, where do you live? Well, I'm up in Antigonish, or I'm down from Sydney or Port Hawkesbury or someplace like that, loading up with Costco stuff. Oh, of course. Yeah, Jen Kite McDonald is like, yeah, when we go to Halifax, we gotta make our Costco stop. Yeah. Sure.
The identify the characteristics of the market, the questions that's there, that just to understand better, so that we are more comfortable talking to our clients.
Yeah.
So is it like, the stats that we have available that give us these data, or is there any other way you could download reports or do?
Yeah, so your go-to, and this is the questions, wherever your resources are. So again, one of my things that I had yesterday was when people get their real estate license, they're just so eager to go out and sell that property. They don't know what they're doing yet. But everybody thinks when they get their license, they got to go find somebody to help buy or sell a home property. And I don't believe in that. Right? I think you should be spending the first month invested in knowing how to do your business, how to service the needs of a client. Or you rush out and try and find a client and, well, you don't know what you're doing, and you turn around saying, well, what do I do now? I've got a client, they want to put in an offer. I don't know really how to do it. Right? You have some of the fundamentals, but really navigating through that whole experience. And that's where the mentorship program comes into play. One of the things that I talk to my mentees about is, where are all of those go-to resources? I did a session, I think, for the office, like, when you do your research on a property, where do you go to find all this information? Like the planning department. Explore HRM is one of my go-to because it shows you the zoning map, shows you the bylaws. What can you do on this property specifically? And that's when you have to look at your principles of value. Your pricing properties are helping somebody decide on a price for a property is, what can you do? What is this the best use of this property? Or is it worth more because you can put a fourplex on it as opposed to a single family home? And if that's the case, it's worth more. Does it have a commercial component? Worth more. So that's highest and best use. So that comes Explore HRM. You look at the MLS system and everything that it has to offer. You have property online, everything to do with titles and deeds, and does it have easements, right of ways that can affect that property? You find it out there, so that could translate to a negative or a positive attribute to value for that property, right? And so there are a lot of different resources. Market stats, it's on there. You go into your dashboard at NSAR and you've got market stats on Paragon. You log in, you go to that, and there's other quick links in Paragon that you can go to and find market statistics. Okay, so there is a calculation, I think, that you can do based on your stats. It's basically to find out what type of market you're in, right? And that is inventory, absorption rate, and then it will tell you whether or not how many months of inventory you've got, whether it be 0 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 and above, sellers market, balance market, buyers market. So all of those websites are important to get to familiar with, get to use, and implement them in your day-to-day practice of learning and knowing, keeping up to date with your market, and then translating that information to your client. All right, so 4 steps to building your expertise and becoming that expert. So learn the market. Okay, that's the first thing. Know your LORE. LORE is language of real estate. That's what LORE, that acronym stands for. It's the language of real estate. Okay. Learning your terminology in your business separates you from everybody else because will now identify you as a real estate professional. The lingo, you got to go. No problem, Jess. Thanks a lot. Okay. Know your business. Okay. Notice changes over time in your personal business. Okay. Be in tune with your own business. Okay. This is where I'm talking coming into this year. I had to look and say, okay, just perspective. When you do your business, be in tune with where you are, what you've done, and where you're going. Okay, that's Jill's going to help you with that as a productivity coach, establishing your business, what are your goals, how are you going to realize your goals, all the activities and things like that. As you get experience in every level, you have to have perspective on your own business, and I do. I look at my database of people, and one time I turned to Laura Lee and I said, strangely enough, I am helping people sell their second home and buying their third home, and these are the big 4 and 5 bedroom executive homes because they now have 2 and 3 kids. And these people are going to be here for probably 10 to 12 years before I hear from them again to do repeat business with them. So once, and this is what happens in my career, they went up and now they're downsizing again. Kids are gone to university, they're out on their own, and they sold the big houses with the pools and all that kind of stuff, fenced in backyards, and they're downsizing because they don't need the 3,200, 3,500 square foot home anymore. Right? So I had to look at, and at one point it dawned on me, I said, Laura Lee, we're going to run into trouble here in the next couple of years because I had to have perspective on knowing my own business and the business changes. We forgot to fill our pipeline full of first-time home buyers. We got to start getting into that now. We have to start recruiting first-time home buyers because we have had that progression. First home, second home, third home, maybe final home, who knows, right? But we had to need and changes in our business. This year, coming into this year specifically, I mentioned that I was seeing a shift. I had to sit back and say, and I called a couple of our colleagues and said, how's your business going? How's it shaping up? Who are you hearing from, buyers or sellers? Because I didn't know if this was a market trend or if this was my own personal business trend, right? I now getting listing heavy, it's me, or is this happening with a lot of other agents? So I need to gauge. I'd be fortunate if it was happening to me and not everybody else, but it does seem that there is a little bit of a shift in the market 2025, inching towards more of a balanced market. 50 days on the market is saying it's becoming more of a balanced market as opposed to a seller's market, right? So that's just understanding and knowing your specific business. Learn the clientele. Okay? Who are the buyers, right, in this market right now? Who are they? What are their needs? Where are they buying? Right? What are some of the challenges specifically? What are the challenges specifically as being a first-time home buyer right now? Let's sort out to you guys. A buyer. It doesn't necessarily have to be a first time. The type of buyer that are out there, what kind of challenges do we have that we face?
Find a house, like, tell her that they can move up.
Right. A lot of that going on right now, more than it has been in the past, right? It's a little harder to move a property today, sell a property, depending on the price range. Luckily, if you are moving up, you're probably selling in the more affordable price range. So selling your house. But if you've got $1 million house to sell and $1 million house to buy, it's going to be a tougher, a tougher trade-off. It's going to be a little harder to convince a seller to accept that. And that might be a challenge that you have as a buyer.
There's someone who was bought during the crazy times of COVID,
Mhm.
now wants to change.
Yeah.
It's not getting price but because the market's not crazy. That's it. It's a challenge, and then the sitting with SOBP, they're stuck.
100%, especially, yeah, there's a lot of that happening in this market right now. I look at still in the more affordable price ranges, that's a challenge for buyers. Right? One of the things that you'll hear is buyers, how to connect and help your clients. You need to educate them, to tell them you need to have a little bit of patience in this market, whether it's a buyer or a seller. So you can get very discouraged and very negative in your thoughts if things just aren't going your way, especially for an extended period of time. I had buyers that dropped out of the market. Tired of competing, tired of losing every time. Yeah, sorry, they went with another offer, another buyer got it, over and over and over again. But eventually you'll be able to help them realize their real estate goals, but it sometimes can take more time, but set that expectation with them from the onset. Just knowing your clientele. So who are your sellers specifically? Right? Who is your buyers and who are your sellers? You have to know those, right? And to be able to talk the language that you need specific to those needs. Okay. Does the market benefit your clients, right? Is it swinging in their favor or is it not? Is it working against them, or is it working for them? And does the market put your clients at risk? Okay. The 150, 160,000 over asking is definitely putting your clients at risk. All right. So, identifying with your clients, one of the things that I would say when it comes to learning your clientele, the number one thing that I know that a lot of real estate agents fail to do, what? What?
Goals, reading out the buyer and seller's goals.
I know the goals.
Listening. What are your goals? Too many agents like to go in and talk about what they're going to do for them, don't even knowing what they need or want. Listen to your clients. Let them explain to you. Get to know and learn your clientele by listening to them. Right? Sometimes it's what are they saying? Okay, what are they saying?
What they are not saying.
Sometimes what they're not saying, right? To make sense. Okay, so what are people saying? Okay, interest rates are going up, so should I buy now? Right? So now you know in the mindset, the tone of the market in the mindset of the buyers. Okay? What are they thinking about right now? That is learning your clientele. What is my buyers thinking about right now? Based on their questions, you know what they're thinking about. Watching the interest rates and how that affects them personally to be able to buy a house, or they're watching the changes in the lending policy. How's this all affecting me right now? But you have to listen and pay attention to the needs of your clients to be able to know what the mindset is and the tone of being a buyer or a seller is in that given market at that particular time. All right. How about a seller? My neighbor's been on the market for a long time. It must be a bad time to sell. So interpreting market time for them is an important thing for a seller. Okay? Now I'm getting the sense that the sellers are getting a bit concerned about market time. So I'm learning more of the mindset of my seller. They're starting to get concerned because am I going to get as much for my house as I planned? how does market time affect me as a seller when it comes to closing dates, pricing, all of that? So now when you get to know and have these conversations, these questions will come up. If you are listening, you will start seeing the underlying concerns. You have to be able to identify that and deal with it. There's a little prompt here for me to throw this out. It says, tell a story about the agent who is starting real estate in their real estate career, who has a real estate branded business logo on their clothing, hat, their shirt, their badge. Sometimes I know agents that have that. Sometimes they have t-shirts printed or golf shirts printed with something on it. Like Wayne Higgins is one of our colleagues in the Charlottetown office. He goes to the convention and he's always wearing a shirt that says, "I'm your PEI real estate referral." He walks around with it and people are like, "Hey, you're from PEI. I have family over there. I have somebody coming over there." He gets a referral or two every single time he goes to family reunion. Every single time, right? And it's because of that. So what this for instance says is people who see this person with that t-shirt on or that shirt on that says something about being in the real estate business. The question is, oh, you're in the real estate business, right? People love to talk real estate, by the way. How is the market? Number one question that I'm always asked. How is the market? Okay. You could generalize that, right? When you generalize, you're not really adding any value to them. You need to add value. They need to see that, oh, you know what you're doing. You know what you're talking about. That's the importance of this particular session, because if you're up to date and you know how the market is going, right? How would you guys describe the market today? What's the market? Good answer.
If you asked me that, I'd say, what part of the market are you interested in, Chad?
Sorry?
What part of the market are you interested in, Chad?
Good answer. Yeah. Because that answer is very similar to how this particular scenario addresses that question, because that's specific. It's double-ended, right? I'll tell you, but you have to tell me why you're asking so I can find out your motivation for asking. Just curious. That's all. Just curious. You're in real estate. I know, heard it was blah, 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 very busy, this and that and the other thing. People were making a lot of money and whatever. Seeing if it's the same. People like to engage in real estate conversations, but you can really reel them in based on questions asked and responses given. But I would generally say too, yeah, right now, it is a mixed market. How's the market? Some places it's great, some places it's not. Depends on where you are. Why do you ask? That's leading into that, because that's what it says. The market's great. Why do you ask? Because you want to know, are you interested? That's a lead generation technique to say, why do you ask? Well, we're thinking about maybe this year or next year putting the house on the market for sale. Got it.
I've had cases where somebody has asked me this question and I've answered one person, but somebody else was listening and approached me afterwards saying, "What buyers?" And it didn't go. And I was sort of listening and think,
Oh, wow.
have a conversation with a random person.
Wow.
They-
That's great.
They called me 6 months later, they remember that conversation, and I handed out.
Excellent.
Really to everybody was listening. 6 months later, they called me and said, "We remember you, we'd like to do this stuff."
So evidently, you said a lot of key things that they related. This lady's experienced. This lady knows her stuff. If you start speaking in general terms, everybody knows general terms. You're no different than anybody else. But if you can be specific in your knowledge, I mean, I would never make anything up, right? Because if you start improvising and you're wrong, people will lose trust and faith that really know what you're talking about, because we have a very educated consumer out there now. Information's available. But if they're asking, how's the market? And you say, well, it's very mixed. Why do you ask specifically? Right. And then you can key in specifically, well, I live in Middle Sackville. We're watching the market. We're seeing some houses come on the market. Some are sitting, some are selling. We're not sure why that happens. If you're in tune with your marketplace, you can really hone in on that. throw them some tidbits of information that you can substantiate because you've just brought yourself up to speed today or yesterday or recently, so that you can communicate with them accurate information, good information that excites them maybe in the way to say, maybe we should move now. And your focus would be to try and get an appointment with that person and help them with their real estate needs, whatever that looks like. So listening, again, we did a bit of preempt on this. Okay, listening to your clients' needs, learn where your sphere gets information. Okay, that's a big thing. And be present, right? Don't be wandering off when your clients are explaining their needs, because that's the most important spot to have absolute locked communication. I am listening. I know this is important to you, and this is going to be our focus. Okay, that's absolutely imperative. Where do your people get their information? Real estate information generally. Yeah, headlines and context. Right? Where do you find your information? It can be Clock News. Where else?
All Nova Scotia.
It's my go-to every morning, except for this morning. Yeah, yeah. What's happening here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and then spit it out, all the news headlines. Okay.
Yeah. All the Ask Nova Scotia Facebook groups.
So
A lot of self-proclaimed experts in those.
I
groups.
love that comment, Chris. You and I seem to be when you it looks like you read through the course. Because that is one of the things. Okay, so yes, trusted media sources. Here's the thing: as a media broadcaster, they have requirements, right? If they do something wrong, they have to recognize we misstated something. We are officially retracting it, but they have an onus to ensure accuracy. They just can't spread rumors as though it's fact. Okay, there are repercussions for that. It's right. Frank Magazine, you know what you get. The National Enquirer, you know what you get. It could be true, it could be made up, it could be hypothetical, all that, and you just expect it as a gossip piece. But when you're truly looking for facts and information, if you're relying on, say, All Nova Scotia, and you're finding a lot of misrepresentations and inaccuracies, it stops becoming a trusted, reliable source of information, and then you move away from it, and then their business collapses. Okay? So they have to be very careful that if that's what you're talking about. Now, sometimes it's could be because they interview real estate agents sometimes, and it's their perspective on the market. It doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean they're even right. Because I've seen some things like, okay, I totally disagree with that approach, but whatever, that's their opinion and they're allowed to have it. Okay? So going to Chris's point, social media stuff, people have start saying things they don't even know if it's right or true. They hear something and they blow it out of proportion, and then that hits me, and I'm a consumer ready to make a decision. And then I consult with my real estate professional and say, what's going on? Is this like, how's that? That's just something that got blown out of proportion. It's not even true, or if it's way embellished, it's not going to have any impact on you. But you have to have context, the headlines. They hear all about this, but then you're the go-to professional source to be able to substantiate it for me. Say, is this true? Is this real? What are the facts here? They are relying on you in their real estate decisions to be able to support them with that, correcting the context and how do you put it in perspective.
I find too sometimes that there's news on we're talking about Toronto and not necessarily our market, and the markets are different, but public doesn't realize. There's a lot of times you're like, well, I heard this, and it's like, no, but probably will experience that too, like fine.
It's usually Nova Scotia, I mean, it's from Ontario or BC.
Yes,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So a local trusted source, and this is why I like All Nova Scotia, because it's just about us. We don't have to keep hearing what's going on. Like in 2010, 2009, we just kept hearing what was going on in Southern Ontario because they were so affected by the crash of the US economy, so to speak. right? So much turmoil. It was a lot of, IT, automotive, other manufacturing that relied solely on their trading partner south of the border. A lot of the finance, car financing, we took a huge hit. So the company that I work with, which is the largest international bank in the world, is HSBC Finance, and that's who I did all my foreclosure work with. They stopped subprime lending and they stopped lending on vehicles. They took such a big hit on that sector. They closed it all down. Canada, thanks to Mark Carney, really helped insulate Canada from a lot of the carnage that they suffered south of the border in the US. But we still got hit, but it wasn't localized. It wasn't here. So all of the news we were hearing was out of Ontario, layoffs by the tens of thousands, and everybody was panicking and not knowing what to do in Nova Scotia. That's why I don't like CBC in Ontario or CTV in Ontario. I like localized news, and that is Nova Scotia. And all Nova Scotia for me has been a trusted go-to resource for information. Okay. So again, keep up with things to make sure that when a consumer comes to you, you can kind of say, yeah, I can appreciate your concern on that, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of validity to that. That's just speculation on social media. Now, the next section deals with the KW app. We're going to skip this for now. Again, where this was kind of a segue. Where do people go for their information? Right? They go to social media, they go to the news outlets, they go to real estate professionals, they go to realtor.ca, they go to one of our competitors' websites that people seem to like to use. Right? I get text messages from my buyers all the time, and it comes from that website saying, "Oh, this one just came on the market. I like more information," or go to see it. Screenshots of that competitor's website. Anyway, they want to draw our attention into integrating Command and all of the KW tools into our business every day. I hired a new team manager who's now trying to help get me cleaned up and back online because I lost my last team manager and I've just been flying without an administrator for about 1.5 or 2 years. And so we're rebuilding now and reformatting things. And I do definitely have to optimize my KW tools, my technology tools. The KW app is something that definitely you want to start sharing because you can share the KW app with your clients to see. It's very much like Viewpoint. You can go in and you can see all of the houses for sale. It was fun because when we were in BC out in 2018, we were driving through an old community that I lived in North Vancouver, and Laura had the KW app open and she's like, "Whoa, you guess at how much that house is for?" And when I was there, the average sale price was similar to our sale price, around $425,000 for an average 5-bedroom split entry in North Van. $425,000. She's like,
What's that?
yeah, right. And that was in 94. Yeah, in 94 as when I was there, 94, 95. And so there was this it was not even a wartime home size. It was a little house and it was being torn down. She said, "Guess how much they sold that one for?" I was like, "Okay, double. I'm going to say 680, 700. He's like, $1.6 million. What? So it was fun. We were doing that all over the place. Whenever we traveled, we go on the KW app and it would tie into the local MLS system and show you the real estate activity that was going on. So you can share that app with your clients. So it's on your mobile device. You can go into the KW app and you can hit the share function and you can share it with your clients and get them set up. So if they want to see new listings on the market in a specific market area, they can go in there and find it for themselves through the KW app. And you can even correspond with them through the app. They can send you messages and you can correspond back and forth. All right. So I want to bring that to your attention. Command definitely to track your business that way. And there's a lot of training for our technology here at KW. Jessica is spearheads that, but definitely have a lot of resources to help you run and streamline your business through the KW tools. So I just wanted to let you know about that. All right. So the next thing, we're just going to do a quick recap after this is an exercise. This is a establish your business on social media. And this is a task for you guys going forward. Okay. This is homework for you guys. This is a way, this is Jill, you could, would you mind taking this section? All right, because this falls into productivity coaching. I gotta run to the washroom because I'm talking fast because I gotta go. So Jill can talk about the importance of this. Establish your business on social media. And so you can talk to everybody about why this slide specifically is important.
No judgment.
Hi. Okay, so most of you have been in sessions with me, I think, anyway, so we talk about this. So here it's saying the 10-5-1. So what they want us to do here is part of your social success system involves social media and other enrichments. We talk about this a lot in Legion. You know, we want to be out there. We're on socials. We want people to know that we are real estate agents. We don't want to be a secret agent. We don't want to be a hidden agent. The homework here is we want to like 10 posts a day, write 5 comments a day, and send 1 direct message a day. Will be your homework. If you're with me, this is usually a little bit different, a little bit more involved as we talk about it. So what do you think the importance is of liking someone's post? What do you think we get back from that?
They would show up on other people's social medias when it's seeing, when it's given on Twitter, when you're on say Facebook, be like, so like this post. Then it also shows that. Care about that, but. Yeah, exactly.
The person that you're liking, see you like everybody posts because they want you to say, look at me, like me, like me. That's what I want, right? So you want to be the person that, hey, down here, I like you.
So that could be from our personal Facebook page.
Absolutely. Yeah. So a lot of the times, what I like to do, I have a business page and a personal page. Depending on your thoughts and what you want to do. I don't want my kids to be public. You know, who's on my Facebook and my private Instagram gets to share my kind of private self when we're on public. So what I do is with my Facebook page, my personal Facebook page and my business page, Facebook page, I'll post on my business, go on my personal, and then share to my business to my personal. So, you know, and then that way they connect. So then when they like mine, they see, oh, Jillian has a Facebook page, and then they go back and they like my page, and then they can follow me that way. Yeah, this is the homework today. It's asking him, how would you describe your brand or niche post? If you were think about a post that you were to do, what would be, what's the brand or the niche that post? If you were to make a post, a social media post, what would be your style? Do you like to do?
So when you talk about the posts, they say for every personal post, you should have a certain amount of professional posts.
Yeah.
What is it, 1 in 10?
Nope. So it depends. There's many different people you talk to, but what I've heard is 80% personal, 20% business. They want to see, they're going to connect with your personal side as your business side. I know personally when I post pictures of not real estate, my engagement is up like 100% versus business. You know, I have my regular people and my cheerleaders sharing and doing all that kind of stuff. So, you know, where is it that you want to be? What kind of post?
People love posts. Animal.
Animal, right, right. So your niche might be, I'm appealing to the people who like animals. You do a lot of fitness too. That could be fitness.
We don't have all young children.
Well, that could be,
Friend of mine.
Yeah, right. Well, empty nesters thing, right? I have a lot of people who, if you can go into command and you can have tabs, right? You can create labels and tabs.
No, I see one.
Every week.
Thank you, Jill, for doing that.
Good to know.
You want to make sure it's authentic to you too. If it's something that doesn't feel non-authentic, right?
Right.
Because you want to make sure you're putting it out there. Still feeling good about it.
Quick question around posts. So let's say on our business page, especially for us newbies, like, what is it that we post, or like, I understand you've given us a lot of sources where we go and see. So can we curate from there and just put up like a small post, prompt generating things just to increase engagement?
It depends on what you wanna do, right?
Okay.
So what you do, what Matthew does, what Chris does, what I do, it's all different, it's who you wanna be, right? So might have one agent who likes to do inspirational posts and another agent focuses on community. Hey, I'm going for a walk today. This is a really awesome park next to West Bedford. And, so it's really on how there's so many different formats and it's how you can do it. There's the social media superstar class next week too, with Julie, and that's really good help if you're looking to kind of get started and in depth. So we're only into the third class. So, the first two classes were very primary and preliminary, so the third class will be a little bit more in depth. Yeah, there should be a Jess will send out a registration link. It's a very good, she does the social media for Mercedes Benz in Toronto. She's very good, a lot of.
I'll tell you, one of my highest trending posts I've ever seen is food.
Food.
You have nothing else to post
Yeah.
something about just something interesting. What you're having for lunch?
Yeah. So again, going back to learning your clientele, right? Learning your clientele. Okay. That's where you really need to be able to identify with who do you want to speak to? Who do you want your audience to be? Okay. Your social media network could be very diverse and very vast. I mean, depending on how many people you know and what your community is or whatever, there are so many things that you could do. But the biggest thing that you should keep in mind is engagement, right? Keep engaged with people. The more people you involve yourself with, the bigger your sphere grows, the more contacts you will have, the more chance you have to do more business, period. So just keep engaging, right? There are rules about social media. And again, this is not a social media session. This is a to-do list. Go on social media, do the 10-5-1. It's the homework from now on. And this should be at least probably a 5-day a week thing. You want to take the weekends off, but at least for 5 days of the week, be engaged with people on social media. And that's a start, right? Limit your social media time because you can go down that rabbit hole for hours, right? I have a reminder that comes up. Stop doing it because I don't participate a lot in social media. Just don't. I don't care for it for a lot of different reasons. So I abstain. It is costing my numbers, no question. I could double my business if I was to engage in social media more often. I know 100% that to be true. And it keeps me in the forefront, keeps me top of mind when I'm engaging with people, but in a genuine and authentic way. Okay? People know me, they know my language, they know when I'm being true or when I'm just trying to be somebody I'm not. So you got to learn your clientele and just reach out to them, but keep it engaged. But 10-5-1, it's the homework going forward. And that should be an everyday habit. You're in business mode or in personal mode because personal and business will mesh at that point. All right. So this is just a quick recap. We'll take a 2-minute break, guys, and then we'll come back and we'll start about, and we got to speed it up a little bit. So we're not going to get a lot off topic when it comes to building your value proposition. But going back, know the type of market and how to discover what type of market it is, whether it's a buyer's market, seller's market, or balanced market. Understanding the inventory that you have in terms of days on market, average market price, how many active listings there are, and so on. So you know your inventory, and this is all about knowing your market. Things that affect your marketplace, which is interest rates and lender policy changes. We talked about that. Economic factors, what's going on that either increases or decreases activity and values. And other market factors, again, similar to that, economic factors and other market factors. Other market factors may be more on a micro market level where they put up a new community center. Oh, they've got a swimming pool. They built a brand new elementary, junior high, or high school, or Cape Breton. Big economic stimulus up there with the expansion of the NSCC campus in downtown Sydney. Like, so many investors went up there to buy investment properties for rent because so many students were going there to learn, and it just really took off for the Sydney market. So that was great. Building your expertise, again, going back with all of those things about knowing your market, learn your market, understand how to interpret the market for your clients so that they look at you as the market expert. So when you know, they will value you as that authority. Learn the clientele. Again, it's the language of real estate, listening to your clients, their clients' needs, what's on their mind, right? If it's a buyer, what's a seller, it gives you an understanding of the temperature of the market and how people are thinking and reacting. And keep the headlines in context, watch the news posts, the media, keep up to date on current events so that you can translate that for your clients as to what is this a good thing or a bad thing that will affect their decisions going forward. Okay, so we're gonna pause there for a quick minute. I had to get to the bathroom. You guys, if you need to go, go freshen up, grab a coffee or a drink or something, and we'll come back in about 2 minutes.
Congratulations. Welcome to the madness.
It's warm in this room. It always gets warm. Closing those doors, but then you've got the outside distractions.
Yeah, it's our new petrol. But we just can't hear. Okay, you want to around if not, you want to go. Perfect.
So, guys are big. Oh, I know it well. You do, okay. No, you don't mean that. Well, you do. The gobble, the. Yeah.
You still do that now? If you go, yeah, eventually. But whenever the first time. Yeah. So.
So there's that thing. I need to put you a bell.
All right, I guess we're all mostly here. Is everybody back online now? No, I can't see anybody. We got Maggie. I don't know, but there's two others online, I think.
I'm here.
Oh, there you go. We still have everybody, which is good. Okay, so now, knowing your market very much segues into the value, your value personally as a real estate professional. Okay? One of the things that you really have to understand, and the one thing that you have to really compose, is your value proposition. What do you bring to the market? What value do you bring to your clients? So knowing your market is definitely part of that toolbox of tool within the toolbox. Knowing your market allows you to provide more value to the clients, because without that, you're less valuable to them. 2020 to 2023, the biggest value you could offer to your clients at that time usually is to open the door so they can see a house. Seriously, Laura was saying that all the time. Your cat could have sold a house in 2021, right? But there is a bit of an issue. There's going to be an agent panel next month. June, where it's going to talk about professionalism in the real estate industry. And one of the things that I talked about was me personally looking back at the pandemic era, is that there was a lack of professionalism in the industry, right? And what constitutes professionalism? Okay, knowing your role, your job, providing that value to your clients when they really need you through that process. Things were selling so quickly that agents were not doing the full scope of their job, right? Finding the information, be able to guide your clients appropriately when they make that purchase, right? Like, you really want to buy off the Beaver Bank Road. You want to buy off the Hammonds Plains Road with the volume of traffic you're going to have to contend with every morning. Okay? A lot of people were not having that conversations. A lot of agents were not having that conversation because maybe they didn't know to have that conversation with the client. What is expected of me as the real estate professional? But when you know your market, you convey that information, you have that information, you are now adding to your value proposition and who you are as a real estate agent and why a buyer or seller client would want to work with you. Okay, so that's what we're going to get into about understanding your value, and getting your self-awareness, your own value proposition, and how you build that value, be able to convey that to the clients when they're interviewing you. And sometimes you don't even know when you're being interviewed, like Umi. Umi was being interviewed at the shopping market. Whether she knew it or not, she was being interviewed. Somebody then called for her services, right? So she hit a lot of the value, the values that particular consumer appreciated in somebody like Umi, to say, I'm going to do business in real estate and I really like value that she conveyed on that conversation. Okay. So when we finish this session, your homework, okay, it is really important because you're going to have to start promoting yourself in your real estate business, is to create your unique value proposition. Okay? That's at the end of this section. We're going to talk about how you build up to the creation of that and all the components that go into building your value proposition. But at the end of this, that's the action plan going forward for you. That's your homework. It's to build your unique value proposition. When you talk to a consumer, why should they hire you as opposed to anybody else? So you really have to have that. All right. So today's unit, we're going to discuss the value proposition, the benefits of having one, how to define your own value proposition by uncovering what makes you uniquely qualified to meet your client's needs. Okay. Knowing this, you need to create, know, and practice your value proposition so it factors into conversations like meet somebody at the grocery store, or somebody calls you over the phone and says, hey, listen, I'm thinking about buying a house. I'm interviewing agents. Can I talk to you a little bit about, how you work? Right. And that's when they're really fishing for your value proposition. What makes you unique, stand out, can benefit me the most, because that's what they're looking for. Okay, right, so we'll move on to value proposition. Okay, your value proposition, again, is 4 main components to take into consideration with that value proposition. Is unique, because if it's all the same, you don't stand out. So AW is a prime example of this. I learned this years ago from another company, but it was the first time, and I probably would have been in the real estate business 15, 18 years at that time. And I was building my own value proposition at the time. I was building my business model, putting my business plan in place. And one of the key components was follow the leadership of the company that you work with and align their agenda with your agenda and see how you can coexist and thrive under that business model. And I was at another real estate company at the time, Exit Realty. One of the things it said is, how do you differentiate yourself from everybody else? Okay? It's how you stand out. Okay? So there's a whole stadium of people and they're all wearing red shirts, and one person has a white shirt on in that entire stadium. Do you think your eye is going to be drawn to everybody with a red shirt on, or you're going to pick out the person with the white shirt on? It's that unique feature that stands out. Okay, and so you need to find your unique qualities. So going back to Maggie, one of her unique qualities is to be able to speak French, fluent in English and French, and you guys as well. Do you speak the same? Yeah.
We understand each other.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so it's different. I mean, because sometimes Maggie will speak to somebody who is Acadian French, and she may not be able to understand because the dialects are a little bit different. But anybody who's able to speak a second or third language definitely has a unique quality, a unique value to specific clientele. Okay. Your value proposition has to be memorable. It does have to have that punch and impact that they will remember it. So somebody went away from overhearing your value proposition and it was memorable because they needed to get in touch with you when all of a sudden they were like, I like this lady and I want to know what she can do. Yeah. So she remembered. So that had such impact, whatever message that was that she received and how she interpreted you was very memorable and in your own way of expressing your value, Umi. And it has to be persuasive to a point where you are leading people into working with you. So you're persuading us why they should work with you rather than them going off and interviewing and hiring another real estate professional. Okay. And it expresses the true value of working with you specifically. Your value proposition could also address specific and special needs of buyers and sellers in your marketplace. Okay. So whatever that looks like, whatever your business model is. So with me specifically, I tie into my years of experience. I have to play to my strengths. Okay. I'm not a new agent anymore. I come with 29 years of real estate experience. I've been doing this a long time. So my experience factors into my value proposition. I can be very specific when I want and need to be because I have a very diverse business background now. I have done, and I shared this with you guys, and I shared a little bit of tidbit of, I can confidently say I probably have the most amount of foreclosure experience in this province. So if I'm talking to a bank, and this is where I'm getting my team manager to help me, is I can't expand without the support behind me. So I'm going to talk to banks, law offices who deal with foreclosures because I want to get back onto that. I see 2025, 2026, and 2027 being a time where investors are going to capitalize on a sliding market. Slow down, people are going to start defaulting on their mortgages because they're over leveraged from the pandemic. They spent too much money and they're regretting it. It's going to be a bit of a hangover. And I know when the market starts to slide down right now, because I have a very good friend that just got a job promotion. He called me and said, Chad, I just came up. I just had my orientation in Toronto. I'm taking over the mortgage division for the Atlantic region. Need to talk to you about getting back together and dealing with our foreclosure work. Right now, he said, there's only one foreclosure and poor Jessica's not in the room to share this. It's in Pictou or New Glasgow, where she came from. He said, terrible, people swiped everything out of the house, when they left and there wasn't much for us to sell, he said, so I'm not gonna bother you with that one, but right now we don't have anything in the pipeline for foreclosures, but I know it's coming. In an up market, there's always more equity, and the equity lenders are always anxious to get money out. So if they start falling behind and they get credit card debt that's mounting and lines of credits that mounting, consolidate it with the equity in your home, then you can pay that off and you can buy time. Habitual borrowers will eventually fail. I've seen that over my 15 years of doing foreclosure work, and eventually it will come to, okay, I assessed that house 7 years ago, and their habits of spending finally caught up with them. There's no more money to save them. They're out, and then all of a sudden it becomes a foreclosure. Right. So that's specific to my value proposition. New construction. Going in, because I've worked in new construction for a very long time. I have a lot of new construction experience and knowledge. That's part of my value proposition. They have a seniors designation. I'm going to take that from CREA. I don't know what it costs, a couple $100, and you can get the seniors designation. I'm developing a senior transition planning division of my team, and we're going to be hitting the people who are empty nesters, looking to downsize or transition into nursing care, rental properties, or family homes with in-law suites and so on. So that's how I build my specific value proposition, those buyers versus sellers specific needs. And you need to be able to identify with your market as to who you want to talk to, and put that in your value proposition to say, I'm an ex-military guy. They're going to be doing some military relocation and postings. I've been there, man. I know what it's all about. So I'm connecting with you to say, if you need somebody that understands this more than anybody, a guy that's been in it. How long were you in the military? 9 years. So did you get transferred or posted in those 9 years? We didn't. All right. But people, you've been part of that culture, and people that have come and gone, and so you do definitely have a flavor for it. Being an ex-military guy, you can definitely catch that in. Perfect. There you go. And so you keep using that as your value proposition and integrate that, because you'll have a better advantage if you're competing for a military member business than somebody who's outside of the military and doesn't know the intricacies of what that means, right? And so even on a deeper level, when it comes to military transfers, it's not easy to rip your 13-year-old teenage daughter out of her junior high school in Nova Scotia and integrate her in Manitoba. It's going to be a tough transition, and you can relate with that because you've been around there knowing what the challenges are. So that can be wrapped up in your specific value proposition. And sometimes special needs. Okay. There are people who I worked with a guy years ago who was able to sign language. Those people with special needs, people who may have certain criteria that most other people don't have experience in or with, that could be built into your unique value proposition to stand out and serve your clients and specific clients at a higher level than most other people could. Okay. Your value proposition needs to state what you will do for your clients to earn your commission. Okay. I'll tell you, it's your value that you offer to somebody will affect you now. It will affect you going forward in the future, because if you offer amazing value to your clients, you will do repeat and get referral business from that client. Over 90% of the business that I do is repeat and referral. I have maybe 10%, which is another thing when I was talking about having perspective on your business. For me, is I need to do more business with people I don't know. I only do about 10% of the business with people I don't know. And that is meeting people at an open house, or they call me on my sign, or I get an internet lead and I convert them and I work with them. But 90% of what I do is repeat and referral business. Okay? And so what I do to get that 90% is the value that I've offered them in the past, so that they're very comfortable and happy with the value that they got for me, that they will do continued business with me and refer business to me. Okay. So the best compliment you can give somebody is a referral. If you've heard that on real estate slogans and cards and stuff like that, and it's true. And it's because you've seen the value that I've offered, and you really have benefited from the service that I offered to a point where you're willing to give my name to somebody else to work with me also. Earning your commission when you have a strong value proposition, you will not have arguments over how much you charge. Don't see people going into their cardiac surgeon and saying, I want a discount on how much I have to pay you to do this, the surgery on my heart. Right? So when you show the value of what's important to the client and you can meet or exceed their expectations, they don't have any problems paying you. It has been a sliding issue in our industry right now where people are competing for the business. They're not increasing their value is the problem. Not increasing their value, they're decreasing what they charge. We would rather take less money and work less hard. Drives me nuts. I see it the opposite way. You work harder, and when you do, you should be rewarded accordingly. When your value is so great that they should pay you more than they'll pay anybody else. That's when I, hug my cardiac surgeon for getting me through the operation. Right? Same thing in real estate. They will always judge your commission by your value. If you have a weak value proposition and you cannot add value, then they will not pay you accordingly. When you have a strong value proposition, you will have no problems collecting your commissions. Right? A lot of people are not confident in themselves. Right? Sometimes it's a business strategy. I want to knock out my competitors by discounting and getting more market share in this area. I'm showing a house at 4 o'clock this afternoon. I noticed this guy who's got a higher than average market share in that area is offering 2% commission. I charge 2.5% to my buyers when I work buyer through a buyer process. They are paying me 2.5%. They're making up the difference. If the seller's only offering 2%, we try to negotiate that to 2.5%. But failing that, charge my buyers the extra 0.5%. Every buyer that I work with pays me 2.5%. And with the sellers, I charge 5% to list and sell houses. Give 2.5% to reward the buyer's agents, help me sell. I take 2.5% on my seller side. I have no problems collecting my commissions. Nobody has ever challenged me to say, I did one guy and I was like, okay, well then go list with them. I'm not worried about that. Right? Judge me on my results, not how much I charge you. That's what I tell them. So you need to be able to have that confidence when you go and you sit in front of that client that you are the best person to get the best results, but you also need to be rewarded for that. And that is by getting a fair commission, right? Also, your value proposition is a promise and it holds you accountable to the standards that you promise and set. If you don't, you're going to be fired. You're going to disappoint. So your job is to meet or exceed expectations. You don't ever have to do more, but you never do less than what you say you're going to do. That's what that means. You are accountable to higher standards. That value proposition you're saying is a higher standard than that guy. I charge 2.5% or 5% on the deal. You can expect more from me. If I don't deliver, guess what? They feel cheated. Okay. So that's what goes into your value proposition. Okay. Top agents can easily explain what services they will provide to anyone who hires them. Okay. You get that sense about Umi? Of course you do. Jill, of course you do. Hopefully you get that too. When I'm sitting in front of a client, I can easily explain the services that I can provide to them when they hire me. I've got the experience and I have the confidence, so I have no problem in laying it out there. You need to get to that level. Before I said conviction is convincing. Okay, if you're so convicted that you are the best person for the job, you're going to get the job. You'll be so convincing and persuasive. Okay, benefits of your value proposition. Okay, it helps your clients understand your value and expertise. Protects your commission, builds a strong, trusting relationship. Okay, I alluded to that in the last knowing your market. Okay, builds a strong and trusting relationship with your clients, especially. The key is do what you say you're going to do. If that's your value proposition, meet the expectation. If you exceed it, they're even more excited, even happier to pay you. One of the things, and I don't know this. I asked Laura Lee last night and caught her off guard. Maybe it was late, but I said, I was reviewing this to come in and talk to you guys today, but I don't know if you know, you're new to the company, so I should know it more than you, but it's the KW commitment. Okay, it's or W14C2TES, and I have not a clue what that means. It's a motto that we have. It's like win-win or no deal. That's one of our our values and a kind of our belief system. Okay? We believe in fairness here at KW. That tipping the scales too much in one favor or the other, somebody loses there. Nobody wants to be in that position. And the KW motto is almost like a win-win or no deal. Right? It's got to be a fair thing. Somebody walks away sore, taken advantage of, and nobody ever likes that. So there's a belief system, and that's part of the value proposition that KW offers, right? And your value proposition can also be your belief system integrated in that. What I believe is this, okay? And people want to hear what you believe in, right? So long as it's, again, genuine and authentic. If you're trying to be somebody you're not, they'll sniff that off you and they'll know the difference eventually, right? But you can integrate that into your value proposition for sure. Okay, so having your value proposition, helping your clients understand your value and expertise. Not everybody knows why they should hire a real estate agent. I don't know what I don't know. That's why we encourage, I do at least, interview more than just me if you want to. I'm happy to continue on with you, but want to know the difference between me and other agents, then call into other agents, get their perspective on it, and hire whoever you're most comfortable with. Being honest and upfront with people, they're like, nope, I trust you. Because when I say I'm not threatened by other people, and you should, because this might be in your best interest to compare what I do to what other people do, so you make your best. Automatically, I'm reeling them in because they're like, man, not the other agent was threatened by you, and you have no worries about me interviewing somebody else. Right? I like your straightforward, honest, transparent way of doing business, and automatically I feel I have a trust factor with you. Right? So sharing your value proposition with your potential clients provides them the opportunity to see how working with you can make their real estate experience a whole lot better. Okay. Great, because I am looking for somebody who has better knowledge of condos. Because I talked to somebody and they were like, not even sure what the declaration for a condo really is. Okay. So you must not be very experienced in selling condos if you don't know what the condo declaration is for, or what an estoppel certificate is for in condos, whatever. And so your experience can be better knowing that you have that experience or knowledge in that particular facet of real estate. Protecting your commission, obviously, your proposition helps you stand out from the competition and helps your clients understand what they're paying for and why are they paying you that. Okay. Don't answer the phone when somebody says, hey, looking to sell my house, got a couple of quick questions. Are you knowledgeable in this area, and what is your commission rate? Never answer those questions over the phone. Yes, I'm knowledgeable in your area. Happy to talk to you about it more. Let's book a time so I can sit. If you're truly interested in working together, I'll show you what I do and how I can help prepare you for the market and guide you through the process. That appointment and then go talk and do your value proposition and then talk about your commission last. You talk about your commission first, especially over the phone, you'll never get an appointment unless you're the cheapest person in town. Because they're price shopping over the phone with not knowing a clue about what it is you do for the amount of money that you charge. Okay. So answer that question face to face in person, but only after you have shown them your value proposition. What do I do that's so unique, memorable, and different from everybody else? Okay. And it builds strong and trusting relationships because it's your promise to your client. And by keeping your word when you work with that client, you earn their trust. Okay. And trust, the clients who trust you are more likely to hire you again and then refer you to family and friends, work colleagues likely. Okay. I assume that all makes sense. I mean, it's pretty straightforward stuff. If you look at examples of a value proposition, there's a couple in here I like, and I really like Airbnb, by the way. When I taught this for the second time, Airbnb just jumped right out at me, and I was like, good for you. That key word or that key phrase really stood out to me. Airbnb exists to create a world where anyone can belong anywhere, provide healthy travel that is local, authentic, diverse, inclusive, and sustainable. I like this more than any of the other life. Right? To me, They used all the words, in my mind, and I guess that's knowing your clientele, like in the first module. Knowing your clientele, knowing what they think when they're ready to travel. They hit all the buzzwords for me. Okay. Providing healthy travel. Okay. I know when I travel elsewhere, I'm nervous. Alone, I don't care. Boy, I can take care of myself. When I travel with the kids or Laura, I think about them more than I think about me. Am I bringing them to a safe place? Are we going to be okay here? And Airbnb kind of resonated that when they said healthy travel that is local. Obviously, they're identifying with, hey, we're worldwide, but we do know about what's local as well, and that meant something to me. Authentic, diverse. I like diversity, which means diverse is you can choose a small above a garage apartment to stay in, or you could have a luxury home on the lake. We have it all for you. Okay? Inclusive and sustainable. All right. So inclusive being, we don't discriminate here. Like we're open to dealing with, working with everybody. Right. So a lot of this stuff really resonated with me and why I like that value proposition. Some of them I find, like State Farm, we're here to help life go right. So vague that I don't even get the value out of that. You know, how do you guys interpret it? Compare Airbnb versus State Farm. What do you think has a better value proposition in those few words that they sent out?
Chat, State Farm is more memorable, they memorize that. It's too wordy.
There needs to be visual in that
With what one?
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it can be memorable. For me, it has no substance. We're here to help life go right.
What do you do? Yeah.
That is so vague to me, it just doesn't stand out to me. When I'm traveling, do I want to deal with Airbnb or do I want Cottages Canada? Right? When I read, why do I want to work with Airbnb or versus what? So if let's say Cottages Canada says we're here to help travel go right. Okay, so that's Cottages Canada. We're here to help travel go right. Or you have Airbnb that says we're providing healthy travel that's local, authentic, diverse, inclusive, and sustainable. That means way more to me than we're here to help travel go right. So there's not enough value to me. Automatically, I'm swaying my decision to go with Airbnb. So this is why I wanted to stop here, highlight some of this about examples of the value proposition. Okay. What makes yours so unique that people would rather deal with you than anybody else?
Can I ask your interpretation?
To make real estate real again. To me, I take that as you want to connect more on a personal level. As a person, as a human, as a consumer that you are there, want to protect. That's just you guys can for your interpretation, let's make real estate real again. How do you interpret that? That's how keeping it real. Maybe expectations, sellers' expectations. Let's keep this real, right? Yeah, the good times are over. It's a little bit more challenging. So there's different ways that you can interpret it. But yes, and maybe that's a bit of provoking. What do you think that means? And you can ask your clients, what do you think that means? Because then all of a sudden you start gauging and reading your clients to know way they've interpreted it, you might be able to start understanding what's more important to them. Tells me, Matt, that you're invested in me, I guess. You're going to be my fiduciary and act in my best interest, and you have my interests in mind. You're keeping this a human thing, not just a business transaction. When in real estate, people feel like you have a better relationship with them. You're more relational and less transactional. And when you're transactional, you're looking for the money, Matt. You're looking to get your paycheck, aren't you? If you want to keep this real and you want to treat me as a human that deserves your best, I appreciate that about you. It can be interpreted in a lot of different ways.
And I just take my marketing hat off for 2 seconds if I could. The tagline, value prop, very different things. Like one of my taglines is selling Nova Scotia to the world. My value proposition has nothing to do with that. It's just something catchy and memorable. A position to people, if that's what you offer to them. So, and that's what comes up to the conversation.
Cool. All right, moving on, because we're getting on in time. Um, so we've just looked at those value propositions. What makes a value proposition successful? Um, value proposition examples are written in client-centered language. It's about you. It's not all about me. If it's me, then the client is turned off. You go into an appointment and talk about yourself all the time, you're probably not going to do business with them. I want to make sure that it's all about them. So it's client-centered language about them, their needs, and why you can help them with that. Pose a challenge along with its solutions. Right? When you're throwing out your value proposition, say, I know how difficult it is to buy a home in this competitive market. Call me, show you the advantage of getting you a home versus not getting a home. Thing of that nature. Like, how do I get you? What is my formula of success to be able to hand you the keys where you get the house and other buyers don't? Right? This is a competitive market. Some people are with and some people are without a home. Which one do you want to be? Call me to show you how I can hand you the keys to your new home today. Something like that. That's your value proposition. You pose a challenge and its solution. And you can use the market as the challenge, the type of buyer that you've got as the challenge. No credit, no problem. That's a challenge and a solution right there, right? You don't have credit. That's a challenge. No problem. Right? So it's given the problem and the solution in a very simple statement. Pose examples. The value proposition examples explain directly or indirectly through the implication that you are different than the competition. Okay? That's what your value proposition will do. Indirectly or directly will imply why are you different than everybody else. So you really need to build your value proposition around that. Now, connecting to your value. Okay, this is key to all levels of real estate. The one, and I'll throw it out to the more senior agents in the room, is the number one concern or objection to handling value for a new agent? As a new agent, what's the number one concern they have about their value? They're new. What do I bring to the table? Right? Chad McLeod or Jill or Umi, you guys are going in to a listing appointment, and then one of the other people who are in for like 3 weeks to a year, going in to compete with experienced agents who have 10+ years in the real estate business. How do I convince that seller to work with me as opposed to going with somebody with that level of experience? It's my value. How do I deal with that? Got to play to your strengths, and whatever that looks like, play to your strengths and draw in your strengths. My very first client was a military relocation, a military officer being transferred to Ottawa. That was my first seller appointment ever. I walked out of there feeling that was such a disaster. I was so nervous, my mouth was dry, and I was like, I should have stopped and said, could you please offer me a glass of water? I'm sitting here for an hour talking, my mouth is dry, I'm stumbling over my words, and I'm like, finally I put my pen down and I said, guys, I've been taught to do everything I just did, but I'm going to level with you. New in the real estate business, I've got 6 months worth of experience. What I think I can do for you is if you list with me, you'll be my one and only client. So my every waking day is to live to serve you. Okay. That was all of a sudden they looked at each other and they started laughing because I just leveled with them. I'm going to keep this real. I don't know what I could do to play with my strengths because this wasn't available to me. All this training and education, there was nothing like that. It was welcome to real estate. Good luck. That's what you got when you first got into the real estate business in 1996. So I played to whatever strength I could. And finally, I just said, Jesus, I don't know what to do from this point on. I'm going to level with you. And they were like, good for you, kid. Good for you. Right. And so when we finished our meeting, my client got up, called the next agent in line and said, just want to let you know that we're canceling the appointment with you. We've We've just decided on our agent. Without even telling me. She got up in front of me, went over to the phone, dialed the next agent in line. They had an agent before me that was a very experienced agent, then me, and then one other person coming in, and they canceled the person behind me. Say, we've already decided on a real estate agent. And so I listed and sold their house, but I had to play my strength, and my value was, you're my only client. So I will focus on you all day, every day until we get this job done. That was my value proposition because I didn't know anything more to do. But this ties into playing your strengths, and it is, as a new agent, what do you tie into that brings your strength? Thankfully, a lot of the influence that newer agents have at Keller Williams is the fact that we do have the productivity coaching and the mentorship program, so that when you get me, you get us. Okay? That has got to be part of your value proposition. If you're feeling like, I'm not sure if I can compete because I don't have the experience. So everybody that I align with as a mentor says, I work with 29 years of real estate experience. That's what I bring, right? Because my mentor and I, we work together, and I might even be at that meeting. So that's the value that you get to tie into. And then they say, look broader. Okay. And we'll get into that for a quick second, but how does being with Keller Williams specifically bolster your value proposition? Some things that KW offers your value when you go and sit in front of clients.
Puts on a team. I used to use that all the time. You're getting 7 realtors for the price.
Right?
You can, well, basically say that it's the same as the broker. You got the help of everyone. Experienced.
Yep, 100%. 100%.
A network of 270 agents, one which helps the other. Call anyone. Stuff like that.
Yep, you play to your value, and that's definitely one of them. They even go as far as to say, and this is in the subsequent page, it says, I have access to the collective knowledge and experience of nearly 200,000 agents within my industry. This is, yeah. You could, I mean, wherever. I mean, the Nova Scotia Real Estate Association has 3,300 experienced agents I could lean on at any time. The people that are my competitors are also my colleagues, and we collaborate. But 200,000 agents worldwide, specifically in this company, Keller Williams. 200,000 agents that I can tap into if I ever need their help and guidance or wisdom, right? So being a market expert, contribute to your value. Of course, we just covered that. You being the go-to in the real estate industry, if you keep shrugging your shoulders and say, I don't know, something as simple as preparing for an open house, and we haven't really defined that from the mentorship productivity coaching side of things, who takes the role in teaching the mentees how to do an open house the most effective way they can? Is it the productivity coach or is it the mentors? All right, but if somebody is doing an open house for me, and Shedrick, you there?
Yes.
Okay, so you did what, 3 or 4 open houses for me over the last month?
Yeah.
Explain your process when you did that open house for me.
So what I did was I arrived like an hour to an hour and a half early. I had 5 to 7 signs. I put them out for the main entrances, and then I put some into the subdivisions. Some days, more so in the beginning, I door knock the area and see if neighbors were interested in stopping by, and asking them if they knew anyone that would be interested in buying in the area, where your home would be a good fit. But on the day of, I have 2 flags along with the signs out as well. Once they came in, I asked them to take off their shoes and I asked them to sign in. That way, we knew who came in. I had a iPod with a QR code and a sign-in form. Once they signed in, I get them scan the QR code and I was telling them about it, and I did let them walk through. And then towards then, I asked everyone for feedback on what if this would be the property they'd be interested in placing an offer on. But that was my process.
Okay, so that was leading up to the marketing and the success of the open house in terms of doing an effective open house with the process and steps of marketing and getting people to the open house. Oh, did you know anything about the house when you were there?
I did my research on it before. I looked at the photos. I did look at the cut sheet as well. And I also spoke to a mortgage broker, so I had like the financing information as well. So I knew quite a bit. Uh, so yeah.
So there you go. So you did your background research. You knew the market in the neighborhood. You knew other houses because you and I talked about this before you went in. Know the other houses for sale in the area. Know
Mhm.
some of them that are comparable that have sold, because when somebody asks you, going through the open house specifically, um, how do you feel about the price on this one? Do you feel like this price is too high? That, 1.26 million, it was too high. Okay. Seller had my hands tied. It was his price. He wanted to, he insisted. 1.28 was when he started, and 1.26. So people were coming in and they're like, how do you feel about price? Do you feel like this price is too high? You have to be able to handle those objections, but you also have to know why you can defend that. Right? Okay, well, the house directly across the street sold for 1.26 as well, and this one is a bigger house. It is a big house. This one is a bigger house. There are some differences between that one that sold and this one. So when you have market knowledge, you become now the market expert, and that value that you're creating right there is instrumental. So knowing your marketplace, definitely how that ties into how people perceive you as value and as a professional. Okay, so I just want to thank you, Shedrick, for sharing that. And
You were mentioning that.
Means he creates it.
Did he make?
okay, what does your value proposition relate to you as serving as a fiduciary? Right? Do you have that in your value statement? Do we all know what that means, by the way? Because Gary Keller throws that around a lot. What does it mean to be the fiduciary? You guys know? Yes, what does it mean to be the fiduciary or a buyer seller?
Loyalty,
Handles.
advice.
Handles legal forms.
Well,
Fiduciary
that's
obligation.
just an example to your fund.
Yeah.
Clients.
Ultimately, what it means, yeah, those are all agency obligations for sure. You have fiduciary duties, but what does it mean for you to be the fiduciary? That means you are a person who is appointed to act in the best interest of another party. But you are always to act in the best interest of somebody else. That is what people want to hear. You're not in it just for your paycheck and for you. You're here to represent me. You're here to do what's best for me. My pleasure. And that's what people need to hear in their value in your value proposition. Okay. How does the market expert add to your value proposition? Again, that goes right to the very first one. So we've already covered that. Okay. Now, here's where I said attitudes. Like I hit this term and I was like, not really sure what that means. But I started to rehearse a value proposition in my mind about adding this to my value proposition when I say, well, why should I work with you as opposed to somebody else? Or what do you do to help somebody buy or sell real estate? Because they want that value proposition thrown at them. And there's where it says attitude. So what other knowledge? Okay, so based on, bringing KW, bringing the size of the organization and that you're new, you're not alone. We come in mass, that kind of thing to help service your needs. So tie you into KW or your team or your company, whatever. Serving as the fiduciary means that you're placing their best interests above everybody else while serving as a fiduciary. You simultaneously raise the level of service and value that you provide to your clients, which exemplifies your value proposition. That's under being the fiduciary. And then being the market expert, obviously knowing your market creates more value. What other knowledge, attitudes, skills, and beliefs do you specifically possess that could help you stand out as an agent? So, Chris, what do you think?
The attitudes that I have is that I'm never gonna lock you in anything that you don't want to stay in. I just had renewal, some properties on the market 6 months. I'm like, let me be honest, you go with another agent, you take it off the market, sell it yourself. What do you want to do? They're like, oh, we're gonna resign for 3 months. I might do it with everybody. Like, well, if it doesn't sell, I'm never gonna lock you in. to client either.
Mhm.
So my attitude is, this isn't working. It's in my best interest to help me find something else.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that's just transparency with me. That's my attitude towards.
Right, so it's an attitude and a belief. You're not here to high pressure anybody into something they don't want or need. So they'll get that. Matt, how about you? What about something unique about you, whether it be knowledge, skills, attitude, beliefs, would separate you from other agents?
Really felt like
Yeah.
I'm back in the game, so I'm like eager to live.
Yeah. All right. So do you have a specific skill? What were you trained in? What are life experiences that might have attributed to what value you can offer to another human being? Doesn't matter even if it's not a real estate person, right? What belief system do you have? Like, I work hard for my clients. And that's a belief. Or I like to take a lot of vacation and don't like to be bothered. What are your beliefs? One, stop
Just
hitting.
like, just
Okay. How would that translate to the benefit of a client?
because I put disciplined enough to put you first and give you exactly.
The first, right? You're sliding in the fiduciary side of it. I'm here to work for you.
Obviously, I just got licensed yesterday, so
Yeah.
I don't have any plans in real estate, but for my clients with TK Elevator, which I'm interested, a lot of my job is capital planning and obviously I get commissions paid all that. But being realistic with the community set, what's the highest ticket item might not be the most beneficial to them?
Okay.
And what realistically they need to look at. Benefit them in the next 5 to 10 years.
So helping qualify their needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, steer them in that direction. Sure. Now, in terms of maybe life experiences, knowledge, skills beyond that, belief systems, what else could you implement into your value proposition that you feel?
For me, I have 2 children, so.
Love it. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, so if somebody's looking for their first family home or they're looking to upgrade, I've been through both of those.
Yeah.
If they're looking to relocate, I've relocated to Halifax, my careers.
Yep.
As well.
Awesome. When Jerry and Annette Murphy called Laura and I to say, we'd like both of you to apply for the team leader position, I was out immediately, had no interest in it, but I said, Laura, you would be perfect.
Yeah.
Said you would be perfect. Why? Because again, the standout, make yourself unique and different. KW is the example of that. I alluded to something that I learned at Exit, but now I see it like it is in your face everywhere, KW. This is not an office, by the way. This is a market center. Different language. It's a language of real estate unique to Keller Williams. We don't have a receptionist up there. What is she called? Director of First Impressions. When I like people love that. Okay, when they answer the phone. I was out buying mitten siding from a place in Burnside, and I had my KW jacket on, and the woman said, "I love calling your company. I love." Does anybody know what they say when they answer the phone here?
I call it.
It's a great day.
It's a great day at Keller Williams. This is Lynn. This is Hillary. This is Aaron. This is Alicia. How can I help you? A great day at Keller Williams. This is how can I? And that's what she said. She kept chanting that at me while I was there by my side. I just saw it. Okay? I said, well, use that. It's a great day at Mitten Siding, huh? Yeah. So we have a team leader, not an office manager. We have a market controller, not an accountant, bookkeeper, whatever. Right? We differentiate ourselves. We go to family reunion, and that's what really I knew then. When they use that kind of language, is the perfect situation because Laura is such an amazing mom and homemaker. When you bring in that family element, she's looking after KW like you are her family. That means big for Laura, and she's all in. And so that is a good match for Laura. Using that to say, my beliefs is in family first, family structure, support, nurturing. This is all good stuff that they saw in Laura to say, you're our person to hire. We interviewed, I don't know how many people, and you got the job, right? Because of Laura's unique value proposition and experience to be able to get that job. So for you, when you said that you had kids and things like that, that's something that maybe you would be able to slide into your value proposition about how you can nurture the clients through the transaction with ease and understanding of family, the as a mom of two, whatever, to be able to identify with the needs of a growing family or whatever. Right? Okay, so we've got those. So other examples, we talked about Maggie's unique skill or benefit is being bilingual, right? You used to work in sales, so you understand how to work in a sales type environment might be part of your value proposition. Maybe you're a second generation, third generation realtor or developer's child that, we have a family history of real estate. So it's ingrained in me, it's in my blood kind of thing. We have a degree in accounting, finance, business, or real estate, right? You can throw that into your value proposition. That's how, those are the types of things that you really need to be able to implement to stand out. All right. We talked about the KW thing. I have access and knowledge and experience of nearly 200,000 agents worldwide. As a fiduciary, I can point you to reputable resources for service providers, right? This is where your value proposition, when it comes to dealing with sellers and buyers, I usually go over my buyer guide with the people on my team, because my buyer guide is our value proposition. And part of that is meet the team. It doesn't mean all of the agents on my team. Meet the team means all of the valued service providers that are going to support you through this process. The mortgage specialist, the lawyer, the inspector, the insurance agent, all of these people I've already qualified for you. These guys are going to help safeguard your process to be able to make sure that this is a smooth and easy transaction for you. I also have the resources behind me that if you need to bring in somebody like a boiler technician to look at the furnace, or an HVAC guy to look at the heat pump, or an electrician, a plumber, or a handyman of sorts, I have all of these people that I know are good, reliable, and fair people to work with. So you as a fiduciary can bring those, working in their best interest to be able to do that. You can bring these people into the equation and into the fold to help them through the transaction. Can help you price your home to sell, because I am very tuned in with the market of the moment. I am an up-to-date, real-time agent, right? I keep myself up to date. Okay, buyers and for sellers. Okay, understand this when you're putting your value proposition together. So when you're crafting your value proposition, keep in mind that for buyers, their goal is to find the right home at the best price, the right time, with the least amount of problems. You can almost say that in your value proposition. Working with buyers to achieve their goals, to find the right home at the best price, the rest, those words if you need to, can be your value proposition when you're fishing for buyers. For sellers, they have slightly different, they're very similar, but slightly different goals. Their goal is to net the most amount of money for the house, the least period of time, with the least amount of problems. So that could be integrated into your value proposition and identifying with the needs of both buyers and sellers there. Okay. All right, your needs in that. Okay, so the top 10 service areas, okay, for a buyer. Do the needs analysis. Okay, this is you putting your listening ears on. What do you want and need in a home? Okay, rate this of importance. So the needs analysis, we need a really good school for the kids. I've had a number of people that say, well, I want to be close to an area where they could go to the French school or be bused to the French school. Or I need to be in an area where they have a strong sports program, right? My kid plays hockey, that kind of thing. Pre-qualification or pre-approval, mandatory for me. Working with buyers, they got to give me that letter of pre-approval. You've spoken to the person who lends you the money to say they will lend it when the time comes. Okay. Neighborhood information, being able to provide that information. So if you're looking for neighborhood information, you come to me because I know it all. Home search, we're going to be effective in helping you find the right home in the right area that meets all of your needs. We help make the offer, right? The offer process is very involved, and there's a right way and a wrong way to do that. And I can help you with that. Negotiating to buy. Right? I know to help get the best deal for you, what you should be paying and what to be careful of. And I can negotiate all of those things, chattels, appliances, closing dates, money, all of those things. I'm here to help you negotiate all those. Vendor coordination, which means you're the liaison between the buyer and the seller. They don't have to ever deal with the seller directly because some people just are not comfortable with that. So you deal with coordinating everything with the seller or the seller's agent. Okay. Pre-closing preparations, like what do I do now that I bought the house? Like we're about to close in 6 weeks. What now? Right? We got a lot of work to do. At the closing and post-closing processes. Okay. You can add all of those types of things because that's the stuff that they are researched to know this is what buyers do value when they hire an agent to help them deal with it. Same thing with the seller. You do a needs analysis, pricing strategy. You can talk to your sellers about that. We can help you qualify your needs. So I do my consultation and I call it a transition plan. When I sit down, that's my needs analysis. We're here, what's inducing this change that you want to sell and where are you headed? Because we have to look at the whole process and I need to be able to put a plan together with you to be able to execute that flawlessly with, again, meeting all of those terms and conditions. Okay. Most amount of money, shortest time, least amount of hassle. And the hassle is the big thing, right? The whole transition needs to be seamless. And thank God I had your guidance and this was so smooth. I can't believe how great it was, right? That's that needs analysis, pricing strategy to be able to sell it in the competitive marketplace to be able to. So a lot of sellers kind of know they want more than your opinion. How many times have we met with a seller who said, "Oh, I wouldn't sell it for that"? That's giving it away. And they want more. Pretty preparation, okay? We will help you get ready for the marketing and viewing the property. Okay. Marketing strategy, what we do to help you list and sell your home. When we receive an offer and negotiate the sale, working through that process. When you actually sell the house and get the accepted offer, you have pre-closing preparation. So the sale process, that means you got the accepted offer. What does that look like? Buyers are going to come through with inspectors. How do we deal with the inspectors? Like, what are they looking for? The things that we should be aware of, all of those kind of things. Pre-close preparations, closing and post-closing, all very much the same. These are all service areas that sellers look for when they're hiring a real estate agent. This speaks volumes to me. This pie chart. I was extremely surprised when I saw this pie chart back 5 years ago, maybe. It was at one of the conventions, family reunions. Harry put this on the stage and he was talking about what buyers want most from their agent. 52% knocked my socks off. Help find the right home to purchase. Why did that surprise me so much?
Because that's never automated.
Yeah. Everybody's on Viewpoint. Everybody's on Realtor.ca. I seldom find the house for the buyer.
Yeah.
They're on there more than I am, right? They're at work checking their friggin' Viewpoint account. What's new? What's new? What's new? Refresh 5 times a day. See if something's new. And then I bing. Hey, listen, did you see this? No, no, I'm with other clients. I'm not in front of my refresh. They just came on. I got to go see it. 52% of the buyers. So when you're creating your value proposition, don't you think it would be great to make sure that you are going to help them find the right home? Because that's what they want most from you. That should be in your saying. If you're talking to buyers, I'm here to help you find the right home to buy. That's what they want. Number one, should be in your value proposition. Number two, help them negotiate the terms of the sale. Now that I found the house, I'm not even sure what I do at this point to how to make the offer and negotiate the sale. So this is the language you need to put into your value proposition to attract buyers or to get the commitment of the buyers to working with you. By the way, and it says other, there is just something that they say that comes up. What's under the other category when it comes to this? Behind in my here. For buyers, there's in the others category, help with the paperwork, right? Negotiating and making the offer is one thing, but all of the other paperwork, okay, they're talking about. Determine what comparable homes are selling for. So help them establish, am I buying at the right price here? Or if I'm overpaying or am I getting a good deal? Help determine how much the buyer can afford, right? I don't usually get into that. That gets into the territory of the mortgage specialist. Go work with them and they can decide how much you can afford. And that's all part and parcel of being pre-approved. Help teach the buyer about neighborhood amenities, all of the things that are up and coming. That's like percent of what they look at for in the neighborhood, and help renters help find renters for buyer's property. So if you're working with an investor, so that's all falls under the other category, which I think that's 24%. So that's a big category, but it's all little subcategories within that buyer's value. What's that?
Staging.
Staging comes into this. Okay. Okay, sorry. When you're dealing with a seller, right? So buyers, no, they're not looking for people to stage. Sellers, yes. But this is specific to buyers. What buyers value in choosing an agent? So now they're making the choice based on, okay, you baited me in with that, but what do they look for? The quality of that agent, okay? Agent is honest and trustworthy. That's the number one thing. Okay. Usually that comes with referral. Automatically comes with trust. Somebody else has trust you and they put me in touch with you. So now I do have that level of trust with you. Okay. Agent's experience comes in second. Reputation of the agent, for some reason, factors in third, but it's a close third. But the reputation of the agent. If you're well known and you've got a good reputation, then they'll have no problems working with you. Okay, factor that into your value proposition. Okay, what sellers want, price the home competitively. That's number one. Okay, that's the first thing I talk about when I sit with a seller, putting down to business, pricing. We're going to find the right price for the house. Help the seller market the home to potential buyers. Okay, thanks, Joe. All right, have a good day. Help the seller market. So you got to have a marketing, a good solid marketing plan. So you have to implement that into your value proposition for them when you're catering to the seller crowd. Help them sell the home within a specific time frame. So that's the sellers want to know when is the best time. So that might be it. Helping you as a seller decide when is the best time to sell your home. Okay? Put that in your advertising and marketing for part of your value proposition. There's where it comes, Matt, when it comes to helping the seller find ways to fix up the home and sell it for more. Okay, so that I generally do. I go in and I start talking about sometimes diminishing returns on the investment that they have, like they just keep spending money in all the wrong places. Stop spending money on, fixing up the landscape in the backyard with all kinds of pretty gardens and stuff, when you really should be paying attention to the state of your kitchen, your bathrooms, your flooring, paint colors inside the house. That's what people really value. So you give them the best direction of where they should be spending their money and the things that they could be fixing. If something's broken, it's the first thing. One of the things that really drives me crazy is if I go and show a house to a buyer and I have to fiddle with the key for 2 minutes to get it to work and open up the lock. That is the first impression my buyer's getting, the negative impression. I can't open the friggin' door. I'm trying, and I'm looking and they see I'm starting to lose my patience. Should never have been the case. That would be help them. Even the smallest little details can go a long way because you're starting off on a good note, not a bad note, especially when it's raining on you. Hey, you want to see a guy not happy going in, I'm soaking wet and I don't care if the whole house is wet. They should have fixed this door. But staging too. Staging definitely increases the value of their property, and that is where I leverage out. I hire a stager to come in and she does a staging consultation and helps the seller understand how to set up their house for viewings. Okay? So these types of things are what sellers want, what they consider when they choose the agent. Reputation of the agent is number one. Agent is honest and trustworthy, number two. Okay, you're seeing the similarities between buyers and sellers and choosing their agents. And the agent is a friend or family member. I hate that. For me, that I set the tone very quickly. When I'm beyond this now, but when I was in my younger years and I was maybe 10 years, 12 years in the real estate, I resented when somebody said, I'm going to give you the listing. Like, nuh-uh, don't give me anything. I'm here to earn it. I deserve your listing because I'm I'm the best person for this job. And I'm going to show you, I'm earning your listing. Not giving me anything. And I think I'm at your doorstep. If you think that I'm here because you're doing me a favor, we need to talk about that. I am a real estate professional. I am not your friend or family member that you know from outside of real estate. I am here to show you what I do in a personal, in a professional capacity, right? And so doing favors for friends or family, I think is the wrong way to choose a real estate agent. You might have that commitment to them because they are friends or family, and it could be a damaging thing to your relationship. And sometimes people choose not to do business with friends or family because of how it could possibly go in the end. It could be the end all of your relationship if thing goes badly. Technology is part of your value proposition. Again, everything you should have into your value proposition. Identify again your knowledge, attitude, skills, and beliefs that make you qualified to be a great real estate agent. Transform the value that you provide, and the value KW provides to your market center and the benefits to your clients, right? How does KW support you to be able to translate that into higher value for your clients? Could be technology, it could be the great administrative support, it could be the education behind you to be able to do a much better job than most other companies would have, and agents at the other companies. And finally, it's to build your value proposition statement. Okay. Covered that. So I guess on that note, everything that we just talked about, and in your workbook, you have all of this when the stuff that we've concluded in the slides, the PowerPoint slides. So we're at the end of your value proposition, and we went a little bit over time, obviously. We went pretty quick over building your value proposition, but you understand if we go for a recap, right, of your value proposition. So let's try and recap it to see how much you guys have absorbed, because there was a lot and it went pretty fast. But essentials to your value proposition. What should you put in? Just throw it back at me.
Unique to me,
Yeah, what's your unique quality?
it should be very clear, or be the buyer find or the seller find, like what's in it for them.
Mhm.
Why me?
Yep.
Why choose me to stand out?
Yep.
How being with Keller Williams and all of the experience that's with me, that backs me up along the way.
Right.
Build
What-
that.
Play into your strengths. Yep, 100%.
Make yourself relatable with the client.
Sure.
You forget what we having kids. So your experience cut into it, but if you're a newer chip like Keller Williams to bring you, or so you get a mentor to kind of stray away from being inexperienced when being in front of the client.
Sure. Anything else, Chris? Your takeaways?
Those were pretty good, actually.
Build your value proposition. Like you go away and you start thinking, well, how do I start? What am I going to put in here? What are the nuts and bolts that we just talked about?
One of the things I would say is always have your value prop or provide solutions. The unspoken questions from people that,
Mhm.
oh my God, I'm really worried that or I'm really worried that it's gonna take a long time, or I'm really worried I can't find a good school for my kids, but that should kind of pre-answer your concerns in that value position.
Sure. It offers the problem and finds the solution all in one. Right? I made an example I threw off the cuff. I can't remember what that was, but it provided the problem and the solution. Well, no money, no problem. That's what it was. No money, no problem. There's the problem. There's the solution. Easy, right? We've got the answer for you. So one of those things. All right. How about you folks online? What are your kind of takeaways from today when it came to either knowing your market or your creating your value proposition? But let's talk about the value proposition first. What are your takeaways, and what are you going to be considering putting into your value proposition when it comes to talking to buyers and sellers?
For me, it'll be letting them know exactly what I'll do. So if I'm gonna door knock for them to like find a property or get people to be aware of the property, that's something I'll let them know. Mailers, whatever it is, just let them know exactly what it is I do so they can have a measured or like say if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do for them.
Okay, so how do you implement that into your value proposition? How would you summarize that?
If it's a buyer, I guess, if the home is on the market, no problem. We find off-market homes for people that like looking, that have specific areas they're looking for. Something like that, but like shorter and condensed.
Okay, so more qualifying the needs.
Yeah,
You're helping a buyer or seller qualify their needs. You know, sometimes they don't know what they don't know. And, you know, sitting there and doing some asking questions like, is a garage important to you with the purchase of a home? Or is the school district, or is, you know, being proximity to the whatever amenity? Like the hospital is a big thing for seniors, right? That's probably one of the number one things of anybody over the age of like 70 years old. I like to know that the hospital's nearby because my health isn't what it used to be. So that's, you know, helping people, qualifying their needs, and that could be part of your value proposition. Maggie, how about you? They have signed off already. Okay. So, all right, so I guess your mission now at this point is to take what we talked about today, right, and implement this going forward. So you, when you're asked, why should I work with you? Like, what do you do to help people to sell or buy? Why, you know, if I work with you, why would I work with you as opposed to some other real estate agent? You have to put all of this together in your own system way, be able to explain, again, remembering key things, right? Key things when you're putting it into your statement, right? Memorable, persuasive, right? Has all of those nuts and bolts of, when I say this, is that going to have the highest impact? Is it going to be memorable? And is it going to be inducing that relationship that they're going to sign with me, go down this road together, whether it's buying or selling? So work on that, because if you don't have that and somebody asks you and you're like a deer in the headlights, you're going to be caught unaware or unprepared. Work on your value. What is all of these nuts and bolts? What is it you are going to do to have success with a client and for a client? And they're looking for all of that. So put it together. You're gonna modify it over time. It's not going to be the same thing, right? 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you're going to change it, right? So for me, with my experience, it's been changing, right? My value is a little bit different. Maybe some of my beliefs are a little bit different and my approaches are a little bit different than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and so on. And so, but you have to start with something, and hopefully you craft one that works. What I would recommend is that you guys, as newer agents specifically, get together and like comparing all of the other value, right? The other company values, right? The Airbnb versus the State Farm or whatever it was, together, and share your value propositions and do a workshop and share it with each other as newer agents. Like, what do you say when you're looking for buyers and sellers, right? What are those captivating words that you would use in order to draw them in and get a commitment out of them? So, all right. So before we head out, does anybody have any other questions or want to talk about anything specifically on this? Or are we good? We go.
Yeah.
All right, guys, my pleasure. Well, you know, it was fast. It was a lot, but hopefully you got plenty of takeaways to consider. All right, Cedric, have a good day, sir.
enjoy. Goodbye.